Welcome to the bonus podcast for episode 444 of Conversation Street with me, Gemma.
And me, Michael.
Previously on Conversation Street, we ran down the top 30 of the top 60.
No, the bottom 30 of the top 60.
This time.
On Corriepedia's Ultimate Character Survey.
This time we're doing characters from 1 to 30.
30 to
in
1.
reverse order.
We know what we're doing.
You won't I think that we do.
Yeah, it's the time. It doesn't feel like that long ago since we looked at 60 to 30, does it? And now we finally have the result. We know what's at number one.
Who is number
I've been
one.
so it's like this has dominated the last half of the year. It's felt like, hasn't it? In the Corrie fandom, thinking right back to the summer when we were filming all those videos, trying to get people to vote and showing what our votes were, talking about the characters and everything. And now finally we have the results, which means that the actual anniversary, the 60th anniversary of Coronation Street, is mere weeks away.
I know, I can't believe it.
And yes, thank you very much to everyone at Corriepedia who have been working hard on this, getting all their results together, doing their sums, writing the little captions every day on the website. It's been really interesting to read, and we are gonna it's been so exciting every night at midnight finding out who's been the next one to be revealed. And apparently some people are interested to hear what we've got to say about it, so that's what we're going to talk about now for the next, what do you reckon, hour and a half, 2 hours?
This is from coronationstreet.fandom.com.
That's what I've been saying.
And we're very grateful because they've shared all their secret information with us.
They have. It's like Tuesday at the moment and they haven't even announced number one
They're
yet.
so
But
nice to
we
us.
know it's literally right in front of us.
Thank you very much for providing us with all this content.
Yes, bountiful content. We've got loads. We've maybe even got more here than they're even going to put on Corriepedia, but they've been giving us permission to talk about it as much as we want.
Yes,
so
thank you,
maybe
guys.
we will, maybe we won't, because we don't know at the moment what's going to be published on the website. So if we... This may be stuff that you know already, it may be not.
Right.
And can I just say...
Yeah.
Our bonus Patreon podcast episode for November, which we're hoping to record next week, maybe the week after, is going to be our personal top 5 Coronation Street characters.
This is like a really bad
ever
idea.
It's not. It's a perfect idea. It's perfect for the 6th year.
We were talking about this earlier when we did the first survey results. Going, I don't even know how I would come up with my top. I don't even think I can do a top 10.
I don't know how. It's going to be really. I think I know my top 2.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna know until you
I'm pretty
reveal.
certain about who my top 2 would be.
Who is
and
it?
The other difficulty is going to be discussing these top 30 today without giving away, like, ooh, oh, they're that low, are they? Or, yes, that's
Michael,
the right position.
The thing is, though, I don't even know what my top 5s are going to be yet. So I think I can say what I like.
That's very true, you can. Well, I don't know anyone outside my top 2. I'd have to have a proper think about it. But rather than doing it in December when it would maybe make sense, I think December's going to follow the pattern that we started last year of doing the top 5 scenes of the year. And so this is going to be our November Patreon episode, so do sign up to that if you want to have a listen.
Yes.
But we're not here to talk about that now. Nobody cares what we think.
Right,
we had that back in the summer. This is the results of the Corriepedia survey where they had... how many people voted in this? We've got this somewhere. You've got it on your page here. Let me find out here. 800 something.
Skipped?
It's at the top. There were... I've lost it. 843 votes were registered in this.
I can do it. Get off.
I've stolen the iPad off of Gemma. So that's pretty good turnout, I would say, for... Corrie fans, and we've got some demographics and everything later as well. It's been really interesting to look at the ages and where people feel. I've been ordered to shut up.
Carry on. What were you saying? Can we get on with what we're doing?
No, I've got nothing else to say because let's get on with it. Okay. We were starting.
The last time we did this, the last person we mentioned was Carla Connor, who came in at number 31.
Correct.
Yeah? So now we're in the top 30 and we're doing it in reverse order just for extra fun.
I'd say add suspense, but I think most people that are listening know by this point who number one is. If you're that interested,
you've already discovered for yourself who the top person is, but we're going to pretend.
You probably know what we think about some of them as well already, but we're going to say it. And I don't know how quickly we're going to whiz through this, but let's get cracking with number 30, Richard Hillman.
Now, this is a really interesting entry. Number 30, he's still such an iconic villain, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. He's the highest villain in the list.
Yes, he is.
His rank in 2010 was 26, so he has slipped the 4 places, ever so slightly slipped. But You know, in my heart, Pat Phelan, I think, has overtaken him as Corrie villain ever, but it's so close. And I know Pat was in the top 60. I'd like to have seen him higher, but I think, in this
Pat
broad
Phelan
popular
was
vote,
a lot more divisive than Richard
yeah,
Hillman was.
absolutely.
Because I think he had a bigger role in the show than Richard Hillman did.
I don't think there's many people who would look at Richard Hillman and say, "Oh, I hated him. I couldn't wait for the Richard Hillman era to be over."
Yeah,
but for
he
Pat,
didn't
there was
dominate the show quite as much as Pat Phelan's story really did.
Yeah,
It was the main story.
It was.
I'm not saying that Richard Hillman's story wasn't the main story but
it was
it
huge.
Wasn't like the most of the year was about his antics.
No, but I think, he's a really solid Corrie villain. And for so long before Richard Hillman, it was Alan Bradley was the one to live up to. And if you judge these results of the survey, then he has indeed done that, because I think Alan Bradley sat nicely in between Richard and Pat. He's never going to be forgotten in the Corrie Hall of Fame of villains, is he?
Infamy. Also, he has something I don't think that Pat ever really did have.
Black gloves.
Which is a catchphrase and a prop.
Yes.
And I think that those help to make you iconic. But not saying that Pat didn't have some great lines, because he did. He didn't have a catchphrase like Richard Hillman's been remembered for. That you should have stayed at the party, Maxine.
I mean, we're coming up on nearly 20.
I love you.
Coming up on nearly 20 years since Richard Hillman was in the show. So the fact that he's still in the top 30 means, he's in it for the long haul. I think Pat would be really interesting to see in 10 years' time as he slipped, or is there any kind of rose tinted glasses for old Mr. McIntyre?
And I will say also, when it comes to the consequences of these two villains, Pat and Richard, and what would have happened if they'd gotten their way, I do think that Pat was menacing the wrong characters for anyone to really be too worried. Like he shot Nicola and then he shot Michelle, and neither of them died. Whereas Richard Hillman tried to kill the precious Platts.
Yeah, but he did have a good body count, to be fair, did Hillman?
I know, he had a better body count. Oh, right, Richard Hillman did, yeah.
Yeah, no, they both did. But I also think that with Richard Hillman, his legacy probably lasted longer on the show than Pat's is seeming to be at the moment, because for years after Richard Hillman left, he was still, had a big... No, I'm saying he still had an impact, didn't he, on the Platts' life. David went off the rails. Gail was always going on about Richard Hillman, whereas Pat, it seems like he's all kind of been forgotten about, and he gets mentioned briefly sometimes.
You'd think for all that he got up to, people would be gossiping a bit more about it. And Eileen was talking about her ex-partners, and she didn't even bring him up as like the first person she thought of.
Yeah, but anyway,
the other thing I also wanted to say was that Richard Hillman sort of kicked off a legacy of villains on the show. I know there had been villains before him, but I think Corrie realised after his success, right, we need to have a villain in it, periodically. Yeah,
semi-regular.
Whereas, so
Richard
Pat
Hillman,
is
Tony Gordon,
one of the
Frank
sort
Foster.
of the ones
the legacy that Richard Hillman started.
Yeah, so I'm really
right.
pleased to see him in the top 30. So shall we move on to the next person?
I think we better do.
Yeah. Next person, number 29, is Karen MacDonald.
Interesting.
Played by the very fabulously talented Saran Jones.
Yeah, and she's, like Richard Hillman, stayed fairly stable in this. She only slipped down 2 places from 2010, so that's pretty good. Now, I really liked Karen MacDonald at the time. I can't say that thinking back, I've got any huge memories of her, and I know I was disappointed when she left. I know I loved her when she was in it. But when I think back about the all-time greats, I don't know whether top 30 is right for her, maybe slipping out a little bit. I wouldn't say...
you don't think she deserves to be...
No, I don't think that she deserves to be higher than Richard Hillman. I don't think she's got that legacy. But Saran Jones, awesome. And
Karen MacDonald is probably... I don't know. I can't remember where Becky is here. She's higher up, isn't she?
Have we had Becky yet? I am just having it. No, we have not had Becky yet. She's still to come.
Is she in the top?
She's quite a bit further in this list.
I think Karen definitely deserves to be placed quite highly. I don't know whether I think that Becky, because obviously Becky was my favourite character, and I don't know whether I think that I think that Becky is Steve's best wife, apart from Tracy, obviously.
I think
There's
Becky's
too
the
many-
wife that
he's
I
had
enjoyed
too
seeing
many.
Steve with. Interestingly, with Steve, he came at 32, so Karen at 29. That's another thing that makes me think, there's not something quite right here.
What do you mean quite right, though? You've got to explain what you mean.
Well, it just if I know it's all to do with votes and averages and everything, but if you were to take this list and say these are the top 32 Coronation Street characters, Steve's at 32, Karen's at 29, I'm thinking there's no way that Karen should come higher than 29. If this was one person making this
do you
list.
mean she shouldn't come higher than Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, but when you say there's something not quite right about it, you understand what you're saying doesn't
yeah.
actually match what you're trying to say.
Yeah. It feels
There's
odd
nothing
to have
wrong with
her
it.
higher than him.
Isn't it? You?
Oh, no, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, but the way you're saying it's like, oh, there's something, the maths is wrong or people have been cheating. That's
no,
not what you
no,
mean.
no, I'm
I
not
know,
saying
but I'm
that,
telling
but-
you that's how it's easy to interpret if you say there's something not quite right about it.
Yeah.
Do you understand how
I'm
that's
saying it doesn't
problematic?
sit well with me that she's higher than
Right.
him. He feels like a much more iconic character, but fair play to her. I'd definitely say she's in the top 50 Coronation Street characters of
I
all
wanna
time.
just say
Easily. She was
something.
awesome.
As well, and that is that I think it's easier to forget some of the minor niggles about previously major characters once they've not been in it for a long time. I bet you if Steve wasn't in it anymore, he'd be ranked a bit higher than this. Because I think people at the moment are saying, yeah, well, I think the shine's come off him a bit. I
Yeah,
don't like
you're
him
right,
in this
you're right.
storyline, or I didn't like that story. Whereas Karen doesn't have, like, all of the bad, boring bits about Karen have been forgotten.
Yeah, I mean, fair play to her for still keeping up in this high in the list, to be honest, because there's not so much that's been in Coronation Street recently, or even the ITV3 repeats. 'Cause they haven't reached anywhere close to that yet. That's going to cause her to, be in people's consciousness. So, I mean, the fact that she's got so highly means that people, must
I
think and have thought pretty highly of her.
I think she was in it when I was watching it on and off.
Yeah, in the early
So
2000s.
I don't think that she had made a big impact on me, but and we'll talk a bit later about what year the demographics of this survey when they started watching Corrie, because that's a really interesting thing to consider, because when you started watching it, it's probably going to have an impact on who you think is the best character.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on. Let's go up to 28, where we've got Alf Roberts.
No,
so
this
one
is
of
good, isn't
one
it?
of the long termers. I mean, Alf started in the show in the very early 60s, didn't he? Although he wasn't in it a whole lot for the first decade, but he had a good, nearly 40-year run on the show, which means that I think he's absolutely deserving of a place this high up in the list. And we've been watching Alf and as develop as a character on the DVDs, haven't we? It's particularly in the late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s that we've been watching. Has your opinion on Alf changed at all since you've been
He
seeing
was
him more?
very much a background character for
'Cause
a
he
long
was-
time, until he married Renee Bradshaw,
Yeah.
and then got involved and started saying he wanted to work, because he used to be like a postman or something.
Yeah, but we never really saw him doing much of that.
No.
So he was off the street.
Yes, that's right. And once he sort of became the proprietor, well, he was like co-owner of the corner shop, and then obviously he really got pulled through the face. And then,
course.
and then he took over, and the fact that he was the owner of that shop and also the mayor.
He just seems to be a really nice chap, doesn't he? There's I wouldn't say that he's there's many who would have a bad word to say about Alf Roberts.
Oh, unless you're curling, you're saying he's racist.
Oh well, yeah, of course, and that's where we're up to at the moment in the late 80s. But he was a decent chap. He was solid. He was reliable. He was dependable. Great on the arm of Audrey because of her being all flighty and spendy. What's it?
Yeah.
Prodigal.
Okay,
means
I
spends
don't
lots
think
of
people
money.
use it in that manner.
Whereas Alf had purse strings tighter than a.
Mouse's arse.
That'll do.
No, don't you think that's a saying? It is now.
Yeah, because Alf had died before you started watching it, hadn't? Because you started in early 2000s.
Yeah.
So would you say that you'd
I'm
like?
enjoying watching him. I think he's really, he's likeable.
Yeah, he
in
is.
a way that it's hard to be now on Coronation Street, because the stories are so explosive and they sort of beg you to take a side.
He's a charming guy, solid, reliable,
Unassuming,
like I
I'd
said.
say.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying him, watching him grow ever weary of Audrey's capers, as we say, with the old purse. Okay, so yeah,
Old purse capers. It
it.
sounds like something you used to put in your pocket in medieval times to stop goblins coming after you.
So he was exactly the same position. He was number 28 in the 2010 poll as well. I think one of the few characters that has not moved at all. So congratulations, Alf. You're solid as a rock, mate.
Yeah.
Now, 27. Percy. It's Phyllis Pearce. That's a really terrible Percy impression. I can't
Considering
do it.
that you're a man and she's a woman and she's got quite a few years and probably fags on you.
Yeah, quite a few fags on me, does Phyllis Pearce. 27, Phyllis Pearce. Wow, I'm quite shocked about this. Not that I've got any problem with Phyllis Pearce, but again, compared to some of the characters that have come before her, I'm surprised that she's that high. I think she's got ITV3 repeats on her side at the moment, but we've still not really, on our rewatch, and we're 88 now, aren't we? We've not really seen Phyllis get into her stride, even though she's been in the show, 5 years or so? She's been very, very background. But then I suppose she stays that as well, doesn't she? Even throughout the 90s, up until when Jill Summers had to leave in 96, 97, Phyllis Pearce never had the big storylines to herself, but she was great as a foil for Percy and always chasing after him, which we're starting to see more of in the DVDs. She was funny. Jill Summers seemed to be a bit of a minx, and I can see why people loved her. I'm just a bit surprised that she's not been forgotten a little bit more, because she doesn't strike me as being, an all-time great memorable character. Name the 30 most popular or famous characters on Coronation
true.
Street. Phyllis Pearce
She's
is
not
there.
a household name.
No, she's not. That's what I'm getting at. Whereas I think a lot of the others that are higher on this list are household names.
I honestly think that she is the most obscure character in the top 30.
And we've never even done a character profile of her on the podcast, because there's not a whole lot.
She must be
there's
totally
not
unknown.
a whole lot to say, but that's because of the lack of stories. But I always enjoy watching her, and I wonder whether she's the sort of person, if she did have stories, she'd lose her shine a bit, because you get some characters like Moira, say, who when they come in, they say their lines, they disappear off again.
Yeah.
And Moira has disappeared for quite a long time now.
Some say
for good, perhaps.
Yes, they're good.
So I suppose congratulations, Phyllis, for making it so high. You got an important part in many people's hearts. Lots of people have got a real soft spot for her, and that counts for a lot, I suppose, in surveys like this.
Well, this is the thing, because what's the actual title of the survey?
Ultimate Character Survey.
So it's not even saying like the best character or your favourite character.
I don't think so. But...
Like the criteria was completely left up to each individual person to decide for themselves. What all you were asked for was, do you want to score this character at all? Number one. Number two, out of 5, what do you think this character deserves? And it wasn't saying who's the most entertaining, who's the funniest, who's the most likeable, who have the best storylines. So there's a big mix of different characters on here.
I can see people going, "Oh, she was great, Phyllis." 4, you know, 5.
Yeah.
And other people saying, I don't know who she is, I won't vote. So that doesn't count against her. But she's actually risen quite a lot. She's gone up 12 places since the first survey.
Yeah.
So I think the ITV3 repeats are partly to thank for that.
Because we've been given all the information about how many scores of each type each character was given.
Yeah, I mean she got a lot of 5s, didn't she? Looking at that, she got 309 people voting 5s versus
that's quite a lot.
36 people voted 1, 39 voted 2. So
yes,
people who knew her liked her.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, really liked her. Now let's do 26. I'll say 26. Gemma, who do we have here?
I wouldn't be able to tell you from that impersonation. It's Fred Elliott.
Nice. Now he has gone up. He has dropped 20 places since the
very.
Yeah, he was at number 6.
Wow.
In the original poll, and you know what, I really do like Fred. I don't know whether he'd be in my top 10 or not, but he might be. But if he wasn't in the top 10, he'd be skirting around the outside, because he was brilliant. I do think that he has kind of been forgotten in some way. People don't really reference him anymore. He doesn't have the links on the show anymore because we haven't got Ashley, we haven't got Maxine, we haven't got... I mean, we do still have Audrey.
Mean he's been forgotten on the show by the characters?
On the show, and therefore by some of the viewing public as well.
No,
but he was
I think
so
he's
big.
another one, though, who has a legacy because of the catchphrases.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that all these characters boil down to just a catchphrase, but obviously the people are more memorable when they have something quirky about their personality or their appearance. And he was a big jolly gent with no hair who had a funny catchphrase.
Yeah, he was larger than life. He at the time, I think it's fair to say that pretty much everyone loved him. They didn't have very much bad to say about him. I mean, he had 40 people voting him as a 1. I don't know how you could possibly do that, but I suppose he's the sort of that might annoy you. And he was a bit of a perv at the beginning as well. But he was so funny, and just having a skim of the rest of the top 25. There's a lot of women in there, aren't there? He might even be in the top 5 men of the list, and for a show that is so much about, you know, the strong northern women, blah blah blah, it's quite an achievement to make your mark as an important man.
As a man in a woman's world.
I love Fred. I think he should be higher. I really think he should be higher than this.
It's tough out there when it's being run by women, isn't it?
Who have we got at 25, Gemma?
Sally Metcalf.
Metcalf.
Good job.
Webster, please. Yeah, good job. That's a solid place.
Sally Sudden, if we're going to go back to the basics.
Fine. She's risen. She's gone up 12 places since the last time, which surprises me a bit. I would have thought that in the past people might have voted her higher, and 25. It feels like she should.
I think she's become less snobby, hasn't she, and a bit more sympathetic. And I mean, her marriage with Tim has come.
I think you're right.
And her sort of rebirth as a proper comedy character, who also, you know, she won awards for her partnership with Tim.
Yeah, and I know that's gone off the boil a little bit in the past few years, but you're right. I think that the partnership with Tim has helped give her a bit of a boost in and on all the stuff with her being mayor as well. Her
sort of supporting Sophie.
I would say that 10 years ago she was still
as a Christian and a lesbian.
10 years ago she was still snobby, but that was just when the whole Sophie Shan thing was coming about. So everything that's happened since
sort of knocked the edges off her a little bit. Also her diagnosis, a cancer diagnosis.
Yeah, definitely.
And the fact that the actress was going through the same thing at the same time really, I think, galvanises people to feel a deeper connection to the character.
It's interesting what you were saying about the comedy as well, because I would say that up until 2010 she's been pushed more down the comedy route, and she's used more for comic relief, but not to the detriment of the character. She can still do when she needs to. Absolutely serious stuff. I'm not mentioning any names here.
Right.
And the fact that she can still get that balance just right is you know, it means she's deserving of a high place. She's one of the, I think she's in the top 10 for number of episodes in Coronation Street ever, and she's going to be. I'm hoping that there's no end in sight for her, so she's going to be rocketing up there. I think that's a decent place. Maybe she deserves a little bit higher, to be fair. 24, we have got our last new entry in the list since 2010. So this is the highest new character. Interesting choice.
Years.
I was really surprised to see this one come up. It's Evelyn Plummer.
And it's not even like she's the highest ranked character of the last 10 years, but she's only been in it 2 years.
Yeah, 2-3 years at that. I think it probably is too.
This is rocketing to Coronation Street heights. This is has there ever been? Well, there probably has been, but this character has, you know, managed to win everyone's hearts in no small part thanks to the fact that Maureen Lipman has already had a big place. And
I think British... the calibre of the actress behind she's
a great actress, and she's already
helps.
got a lot of people on her side because they like Maureen Lipman.
I think one of the things that surprised me about this maybe was that, you know, reading the Corrie fandom, there are still some people who are like, no, I can't be dealing with Evelyn, don't like her, Blanche wannabe, she's not funny. Yeah, I've heard a lot of that, and some people just don't like Maureen Lipman. And scanning the number of ones that all the characters got, and we've just got the top 33 are visible to us at the moment.
Oh, yeah,
she's got almost the most number ones. She got not number ones, scores of one. She got 49 people voting for her one, and the only other one that comes close on here is Richard Hillman, who got 54, which is really interesting. Why did 54 people vote Richard Hillman a one? Is it because they hated him so much because he was a baddie? Grr, I shake my fist at you. And I don't think there might be some of that, but I don't think people would vote Evelyn that because she's not a baddie, you know.
I think she. The thing is, I don't think her introduction was very good. And I think it took them a long time to balance to get what they wanted out of her and to make her likeable as well as an interesting battle axe character.
Yeah, she was too rough-edged at the beginning, wasn't she?
She was too sharp and unpleasant at the beginning, and it took them a while. But now I think they're really in the groove. And
yeah,
she's very judgmental.
Great relationship with Dev, brilliant. I'm loving how it's bringing Tyrone and Fizz into the fore a little bit more. Relationship with Ruby and Hope, she's fantastic, and this recent stuff with Arthur I've really, really enjoyed.
And I will say also that sometimes if you're popular and you're new, people will take against you, and I think that perhaps that 49 people scoring her a 1 is more of a reaction to the fact that she's so popular rather than the fact that she is intrinsically a bad character.
Could be, but on the flip side of the coin, she got 731 fives, which is actually fairly high.
No, she didn't. She got 380. That's the total number.
Oh gosh, it is, isn't it? 381
if she got 731 fives, she would be the best character. She would be the number one. By a long margin.
I'm misreading my columns, everybody. I do apologise. I'd be very interested to see where she is in the 5 years' time, let alone 10. She's come in with a bang and made a big splash. Is she going to stick there? I don't know whether she's got as many quotable lines as Blanche. And I don't want to compare here. I think that she's
Blanche
a really
had a
good.
Longer in the show.
It's so difficult when you've got people to compare.
Yeah,
isn't it? I think as a character on her own, she's brilliant. It wouldn't surprise me if she slipped a little bit. And also thinking about where Sylvia ranked on this poll, which is really, really highly compared to where I think would have expected her to. Maybe there's some a lot of the demographics like the battle axe. Maybe we could say.
I think Corrie viewers in general like battle axes.
Very, very true. And from one battle axe to the next, number 23, we've got Emily Bishop.
What are you talking about?
Another real long-termer, sadly no longer with the show, and with the chance of return on the horizon ever dwindling. I think that 23 is a real solid place for this character. It's so important in Coronation Street history, despite not having many huge storylines to her name.
She's actually got one of the fewest number of low votes in the top 30. She only had 19 people vote her a 1.
Yeah, so everybody understands, I think. Everybody likes Emily on the whole, understands her importance to the show. We've seen, since watching some of the older episodes, we've seen her grow over the years, haven't we?
I honestly really appreciate Emily way more than I did when I just thought she was just a boring old lady character.
She's almost turned into that a little bit already, even by the late 80s where we're up to at the moment.
But now I know her story and where she came from, it makes more sense that she's like the way she is, which sounds silly, and I've got prejudice there against little old ladies for calling her boring and stuff, but and she's really good at comedy as well.
Yeah.
And I think I've forgotten how many times she has been involved in sort of fairly comedic stories where she just plays completely the straight person. And you forget how important that role is in creating comedy.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Or I might possibly, for importance, I think she's right up there. For favourite characters over the years, I'd probably rank her a little bit lower. I don't think there's a whole lot of Corrie fans that are like, oh, I absolutely love Emily Bishop, she's brilliant. Yeah, give me more of that Emily Bishop. She's just, she's there, she's likeable, lovely old, Auntie Em.
She's a solid character.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's not offensive in any way.
No, of course, no. But one of the things that I've liked in the old episodes that you've been watching is her relationship with Deirdre through the whole Mike and Deirdre Ken love triangle.
I always wondered why she was so obsessed with Tracy, but now I know.
Yeah. She's a great old character. And I'd love her to come back, but
she was in it for 55 years.
Unlikely now. And we're just these old ladies keep on coming, because at number 22 we have Queen of the Rovers, Annie Walker, the original, some may say the best, Rovers landlady. So she has dropped 6 places. I didn't say for Emily, but she stayed solid at 23. But Annie Walker has gone down 6 places. Bit sad, really, because since we've been watching, I mean, Annie Walker to us was just a name, just a name in a block of text that we may have read about, or somebody in pictures. But since the beginning of the year, we've seen so many episodes with her in, and I think she would be higher in my personal top list of Coronation Street characters. She was a real gem, and somebody who didn't fizzle out of the show like so many of the other great characters did.
True, yeah. I think looking through here, I think that you can tell by the number of votes cast that quite a few people didn't vote at all to score Annie.
Yeah, you're right. She's surrounded by...
She got 652 votes overall, and she actually has a lot fewer votes than Emily Bishop. But because she had a greater number of 5s, she goes one ahead of Emily.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say that if you look at this list, you'll also see that the older the characters are, the fewer votes were cast for them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the fact that she's in number 22, she definitely deserves to be. I think she deserves to be in the top 20. I really think she's one of. It's
Makes
so
me wonder
difficult.
if everybody who voted saw every episode of Coronation Street.
I know, that's what I'm thinking.
Would she have come higher? Because she was, they struck gold when they got Doris Speed to play this part. She just did it absolutely perfectly. The snootishness, the looking down upon people and casting these disparaging remarks while gazing up into the ceiling. She knew that she was, on high and better than everybody. And Doris Speed just played it perfectly.
Annie Walker, according to coronationstreet.fandom.com, because they write a little facts about each of the characters and a little rundown of their lives, Annie was based on a woman called Josephine Patterson, who was landlady of the Lantern Pike, which is one of the places that we went to go and visit when we were
that was the Pat Phoenix pub, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, yeah, Pat Phoenix and Tony Warren. No, this was the place that was in Tony Warren's village.
Yeah.
So he wrote the original scripts, some of them, in the Lantern Pike, probably looking at this woman, who then would eventually turn into Annie Walker. And the Pat Phoenix connection is that she also lived in the same village as he did.
Yeah, that's right. So as much as Annie and Jack Walker were a brilliant duo for the first 10 odd years of Coronation Street, the fact that Annie Walker then went on and did so much time on her own, and there was all the stories were about her. Could she run this pub on her own in her, as she was getting older? Is she the longest term landlady that the Coronation Street has ever had? I would say probably.
She was fantastic.
It's a shame that for so many modern viewers, she's just
a memory, or
just a name that doesn't mean anything. But she really was something special. I would say one of my favourites of the original bunch, definitely.
Oh, easily, yes, very iconic. Loved Annie Walker.
Who have we got next?
Gail Rodwell.
Gail, nice. She has jumped up 35 places. So in our top 30, this is the biggest jump.
She was 56th back in 2010.
Really interesting. So I would have said a drop for Gail would have been more likely, because the character has lost it a little bit.
Yeah, but I'm going to say I think that being 56th in 2010 was weird.
Oh,
I think that's
absolutely.
too low. So to me, this feels like a bit of a sort of writing of the...
Yeah, I get what you mean by that, actually. Yeah, I mean, considering that in 2010, that was, the Richard Hillman's saga was maybe a bit of a distant memory there, 6 years ago. Why was she ranked so low then? I can't put my finger on it. I don't remember what Gail was getting up to then. But as a member of the Platt clan, you're going to get a high ranking, aren't you? I suppose.
These days, yeah.
As they are such a prominent character
I
in the
would have said
show.
5 years ago, more so than
Yeah,
now.
you're right. But
because I think Kate Oates did a lot of really good work sharing out a bit more of the attention, because it really was the Platt show.
not that I had a problem with that.
I didn't mind it at all, but she sort of brought the Barlows back into prominence, and now I think the focus is a bit more equally on the bigger families than it used to be. So I think the Platts have had their heyday now.
I suppose Gail is kind of reaching the age where people have got a respect for a character that's been in it that long, and she's not just one of the characters. She's a proper long termer, isn't she? She's been in it since the 70s.
Yeah.
And I think with characters like that, if they're still going in it,
there's a lot to recommend them, isn't there?
Yeah.
I also don't think they're likely to go unless the actor wants to go. At this point, Yeah,
definitely. So well done, Gail. Interesting. She may be past her prime now, possibly.
I don't think she is. I think what you're trying to say is that the writers aren't giving her best.
No, although she still is capable, obviously, of pulling it out of the bag.
She's even
really recently with what we've seen with her and Nick during this Ollie story. Oh yeah, exactly.
So why is so much attention being given to her simpering side when she's got so many other things?
Yeah, I would say between Gail and Sally, and often those names are so closely associated with each other because best friends and all that. Apparently,
of course.
I would say that Sally has come out of the 2010s better than Gail has. So I would maybe want to have a switch around of those, but they're both fairly close to each other. So I'll take it.
I agree with you about that. I would swap Sally and Gail around just because I think that Sally's a more rounded character than Gail is.
Yeah, but I mean, she has got part of the Platt legacy, hasn't she? Speaking
and
of
also her relationship with David Platt is obviously a massive...
Ooh, a lovely segue.
A massive part of her appeal. And where is David?
20. He
David
has
Platt
just
makes
picked
it into
his
the top
mum
20.
into the top 20. Nice
All
one,
on Christmas
David.
Day. So he's 30 now. He's going to be 30 this year.
Oh, is he?
Well, he was born in 1990.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. So he's risen 23 places since 2010. Another big mover since the last profile. Not surprising.
30 seems so young to me.
What is surprising...
I was 30.
I know. What is surprising is I thought he might be higher.
Yes, me too. I love David so much. I think he's such a great character.
There's so much love and respect for Jack P. Shepherd's portrayal of David at the moment. Not just from us, who are obviously big David fans. It just generally seems like everybody thinks that he's pretty great on the show, David, and he gets the nominations, fairly consistently. He gets the nominations for Best Actor. I suppose what we were saying about Fred earlier, you're still in the top, 5 guys, even if you're number 20 in the entire character list. But does he deserve to be a bit higher? Will he continue to rise? Will he continue to be used quite so much? I think the future could, belong to David, and I hope that he doesn't go down the Steve McDonald route and go a bit silly. I don't think Jack would let the character go that way.
I don't know that it's down to him, but the thing is...
No, but I think he would say, if he's the sort that would say if the character's not working for him, he'd be like, I'm out of here.
Oh, interesting.
Possibly.
We talk a lot about who's the street's new man. Like Ken Barlow is obviously the sort of ever present, male character, and we're sort of, when he leaves, which is who knows when that will be. Hopefully not for a very long time. He's going to take up the mantle. And we talk a lot about Daniel being that person just because he is the son of Ken. But, you could very much make a case for it being David just because of how integral to many of the storylines of the street, the big stories of the street he's been a part of those. And also, he's been in it for so long. He was born in the show.
I mean, the first 10 years of David are a bit of a write-off, aren't they? But in the last 20 years, we've just seen this little kid, this cheeky little boy, go through the Richard Hillman saga, turn into the demon teenager, which is a bit of a cliche, to be fair, but everybody loved him through that stage. Well, not
to be honest,
everybody, but
Coronation Street is not very good, really, at making teenage characters sort of interesting or important feeling. They're trying harder now, but it felt a bit like you just got put on the shelf.
Yeah,
this new generation of teenage characters is definitely a sort of rejuvenation of that age group. But David really sort of ruled the roost when he was a teen.
Yeah, he's got so much depth, and I think if it wasn't for Jack P. Shepherd's fantastic talent at being able to bring this character to life, there's no reason to think that David couldn't have just gone the same way as so many other teenagers that have just kind of gone off the boil a little bit. You know, we've seen quite a lot of child actors grow up and just gone.
There's been a lot of potential that's been like squandered, not you know, on purpose, but you can't give everyone a shot, can you?
No.
Not everybody gets to be the star of a soap. You only get one big story a year, one or two big stories a year. Interestingly, he's gone up quite a lot. He was 43rd.
Yeah, gone up to 23.
So that's a massive leap, and I think, you know...
Yeah, I would hope that he would continue to rise, but like you said, it feels like the plats are being used a bit less now. Maybe let's give him a new push, because I think if I was in charge of Coronation Street, I'd be putting David front and centre. He would be my poster boy.
Careful, haven't you?
For the street. Oh yeah, definitely. 19 then, so into the teens we have got Mike Baldwin. So he's just gone up 2 places since 2010, so not much of a mover there. I don't like him as much as David Platt, I have to say, but I do respect the importance and the legacy that Mike Baldwin has on the street. I mean, obviously the feud with Ken Barlow is the main thing that people will always associate with him. But Johnny Briggs was a real solid actor and a real charmer, much like Jack P. Shepherd is. So it's not surprising that people have got some fond memories of him.
Well, he also came into the show at the right time for the more sensational sort of love stories and the tales of exaggerated life stories. Everything was a bit more sedate before that. You know, we had big stunts like, you know, cars crashing into things and viaducts collapsing and houses falling down. But this was like the more recognisably soapy stories of affairs and cheating and that being a big draw for people. And you know, the story about it, the news that Deirdre was going to stay with Ken being broadcast on the football thing or whatever it was.
Yeah, we've also just been watching him getting married to Ken's daughter Susan as well, haven't we, on the DVDs, which has been quite funny. But he's got an important legacy. There's been a factory on Coronation Street of sorts almost constantly through the show. I know we've had times when it's been a community centre and whatnot, and when you think factories,
there isn't
the number
better.
one. There isn't. No,
even Carla, you know, doesn't come close to how important Mike Baldwin was to the factory.
Legacy of Coronation Street. Yeah, real a charmer, a wide boy, likeable despite being a bit of a nasty toe rag and only being out for number one. But yeah, he did have his good side as well. And I'm thinking of like when John Lindsay got Deirdre sent to prison, Mike was fighting for Deirdre. So
yeah, he's got things to recommend him.
He does, and despite what William Roach thinks, a damn good exit as well.
Well, he was more concerned about his performance in that take, wasn't he, rather than the story.
Okay, another high guy on the street. I don't think I'd put him in my top 20 necessarily, but I think fine. It feels about right that he's there. He's a big name.
I think one of the other things that some of these characters seem to have in this top 20 is either really strong current presence in the show or a nice story arc that you can look at it and go, yeah, that's the story of somebody's life. Like Mike came in, he was arrogant, he was cocky, he fell in and out of love, he had rivals, but at the end He died in the arms of his nemesis.
He was just a weak, frail old man, wasn't he? You're right. He had a real arc.
That was a tragic story, really. If you look at how he died, and that's memorable. That sticks in people's minds. So when they're coming to do a score, a lot of these aren't just the personalities. Obviously, they're the storylines that the characters were involved in, and Mike was involved in massive storylines, which included his exit.
Yeah, you get some characters that just kind of pop in for a story, then go to the background again.
Yes.
And they just, it's like they pull them out of the cupboard, honestly, and dance about on the stage for a bit, and then off they go. But you're right, Mike, I feel that even though we only saw him come in as middle aged, we know him really well. He's really in depth, a deep character.
Some characters will only ever have one massive story their entire run on the show.
Yeah.
And all of these characters in the top 20, I think you can say, had multiple big stories.
Yeah, you're right. Number 18 then, we've got another fan favourite, Audrey Roberts. Another long-termer. I mean, she's been in it over 40 years now. Was it 40 just last year? I can't remember. She's such a funny one because I still see her as being a bit of a side character, yet equally so important and integral to why so many people like the show. And when you think back on Audrey, just so many great memories.
I don't think perhaps she's appreciated enough as how iconic she is, because there are lots of other female characters who've either been in it longer than she is or have had bigger stories than she has. But she's just been there for so long, like since 1979, I think. Is that right? She's just been there for so long.
Yeah.
That and she has she has evolved as time has gone on, from sort of being a very flighty, kind of unpredictable, unreliable, rubbish parent into turning into this like kind of pillar of the community as the mayoress. The mayor's wife. Was she the mayoress?
No, she was for a little bit, but then she got tired of it, and then Betty ended up taking over. Yeah.
And it's also strange because she doesn't actually live on the street.
I was going to say, well, often when you think of the big names of Coronation Street, you got to live on the street. And she did for a bit, didn't she? She and Alf lived there. But since the early 90s, they've lived... since the early 90s, she's been Grasmere Drive through and through. Yes. And so there have been periods when we've not seen her on the street.
Owning a business there is an important way of keeping
absolutely. It's always funny to me. She seems to... In my head, Audrey is Gail's mum first and a character in her own right second.
Really? I don't think of it the other way around.
Yeah, no, I kind of see her as a side character, even though I shouldn't. And
I don't.
And I would say that there haven't been very many Audrey stories. There's been Platt stories where she's had stuff to do. Gail stories where she's had bits to do.
Most of the stuff she's done recently has been to do with... what's Nigel Haver's character?
Lewis Archer.
Yes, all of that stuff was great.
Yeah, she has.
And I think that makes her more likeable. Some people will go through a storyline that is big, important storyline, but they don't come out of it really having won anyone's affection.
No.
Whereas Audrey did, because that was another tragic story, and she's really been quite unlucky in love because she's sort of seen her...
Mark, remember, transvestite story.
I was thinking more of the fact that, people die.
Yeah, that's pretty sad as well. I think that there's an awful lot of affection for Alfie and Audrey as a couple.
Yeah.
And
then the whole thing with Lewis, really, honestly, won me over for Audrey, because it was also really nice to have a romance story for a woman who is over the age of 50. Because obviously soaps have this stuff, but they're one of the few pieces of entertainment where we're sort of expected, we're able to take mature women's love lives seriously, or sort of examine them at all.
Yeah.
Which is why I like them, because they're a bit more democratic than other forms of entertainment.
I'll tell you about Audrey and Sue Nichols. She might not always be at the forefront of all the big stories, but whenever they need her to do anything, she always brings her A game.
I love her.
She can play it just right. The comedy she does perfectly. The drama she does perfectly. I mean, we got the hairdressing
great.
Awards from a few years ago. It's
drop.
not up there with the Alcoholics Anonymous, but often when people say, what have been some funny scenes in recent times in Coronation Street, the hairdressing awards will often get mentioned.
Yeah, because
So
it was hilarious.
It was hilarious, and a lot of that was down to Sue Nichols.
Yeah.
And I just remember as well when we were at the Soap Awards, was it last year, and Sue was up on the stage for getting her Outstanding Achievement or Lifetime Achievement or whatever it
and she
was,
wouldn't
and
shut up.
her acceptance speech
Love
was
her.
just brilliant.
Absolutely
So,
love her.
despite a number 18, maybe a bit underappreciated, I don't know. I think this is a good space, a good place for her.
I know, but the thing is, all my favourite characters, I think, they should definitely be in the top 20, and there's more than 20 of them.
Yeah.
Also, we have to give a quick shout out to the Audrey noise, which obviously Martin Het on Twitter.
Yeah, well, I at least
Was
hope
the
that Martin
person
Het
who-
would be pleased that Audrey jumped
Yes.
up 13 places since the 2010
That's true,
poll.
yes.
Now we have got a non-mover again at number 17. I mean, I said earlier with Alf Roberts, it's surprised we've had a non-mover, but we've had a few since then. We've now got Stan Ogden.
Oh, bless him.
I know, and he is the third to number 3 male character on the street. I'm just having a look at who we've got left to come. This is a bit of a surprise to me
Why?
because it always
Should be
felt
lower
that
or higher? What do you
lower.
mean?
I don't think he should be, but I think that he was always in Hilda's shadow.
Yeah, I
Hilda
agree
is
with
the
that.
one of the two that gets the most recognition. Is that, oh, Hilda this, Hilda that. Whereas Jack and Vera, they're often considered on a
Yes.
fairly equal pegging.
You're right, you're very right.
And it was all about Hilda, and he was just there, you know, being nagged at and berated, and just kind of being a general slob. And
He wasn't, he was just awful.
but we've seen a lot of him this year on the DVDs, and he was really lovable and funny.
And also, but he was a dog's body, and he was the underdog a lot of the time, but it
Yeah.
was his own fault. And it was heartbreaking to see how obviously he was holding the Ogdens back just through his laziness. And his sort of lack of, I don't know, foresight or perspective.
Looking back, the Ogden stories were some of my favourite bits of recurring vintage
They had
Corrie
antics, didn't they?
goodness.
More than any other
Hilda,
couple.
Stan, Eddie, they would
Yeah.
have their own episodes where
Yes.
this is the one where they go and do this,
Yeah.
and then things go wrong for them, and what a fine mess you got us into, Stanley, sort of thing.
As a couple, they had more antics, I think, than any other characters. I know people
Mini
like
antics.
to say Jack and Vera had some big ones, but when you ask, you know, when you look at it, they can only really remember a few really big.
Yeah, I mean, with Stan and Hilda, you've obviously got the honeymoon, but that they had more of the little antics, I would say.
Did, yeah. So what are they getting up to now?
Yeah, absolutely. I really love Stan, and I'm surprised in a way that, like I said, that he has been remembered quite so fondly by some of the voters in the poll. Though again, looking at the numbers, 650 votes cast puts him not one of the highest, but at least for the people that did love him, they remember him fondly.
But again, this is another example of how we are viewing this through the lens of the time it was recorded in, not imposing 2020 values onto characters from the past. And I think that chronological relativism is an important... I just made that up. I think that's rubbish. But it's important to... You're going to get yourself in going round in circles and just cancel everybody unless you have a bit of perspective about a lot of these characters. Stan Ogden was a domestic abuser who used to beat his wife, but he was also a lovable character because at the time that was presented as like a silly joke.
Yeah.
And of course now we understand it's not funny, and we've got, I think Coronation Street has done a really great work recently rectifying that kind of legacy of not taking it very seriously with Yasmin and Jeff's storyline, because I mean Jeff hasn't even laid a finger on Yasmin, but he has been very, very abusive, and it's been portrayed really well.
Yeah.
But you know, I just want to, we're not unaware of some of these characters' problematic pasts.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
they downplayed it a bit, but especially in the early days, Stan was some of the things that we saw him saying and doing was a little bit dodgy, and it wasn't like, you know, we wouldn't see him hitting her, and it was like, oh, she deserves that.
Morals shift all the time.
There was the threat.
And I'm not saying that it was right to sort of view this as not being as back in the day just being like a comic thing that you would, threaten to slap your wife about. But in 100 years, people might watch this show and say, oh, I think it's disgusting that they all ate meat all the time and never mentioned all the animals that they killed, we take our morals with us and they change all the time, and that's really important.
Yeah.
It's really important that we do keep reevaluating ourselves, but you can't just take your morals that exist now and project them onto the past, because it doesn't work like that.
One thing before we move on from Stan that I'd say is a well done to him is that compared to some of these other characters who have either held their high place or even jumped higher because of various reasons like the ITV3 repeats, there's no particular reason why Stan shouldn't have dropped, because on ITV3 and everything, he that's past his time, way past his time. He never gets mentioned. He's not in any way relevant to the street anymore.
The options are completely
utterly irrelevant. So despite that, the fact that he's still up there, when we've seen so many other characters who used to be bigger, I mean, like Albert Tatlock has dropped out of the top 60. Yeah, Stan Ogden sits firm at number 17. That says a lot.
Also, I wonder how much of this can be put down to clip shows and keeping some names alive through the clip shows, and what's been archived and gets used time and time again, and what just doesn't. Because even if you don't know or haven't seen any of the original, back older episodes, you will have probably seen Stan and Hilda doing their honeymoon scene.
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna say, "Oh, they look like a brilliant couple." It's like that they're telling me that they're
no, but I think that I don't think it's a massive percentage of people. But I will say, I bet you that some people have gone, "Oh yeah, he's a 5. I know who that is."
Yeah, quite possibly. Well, I mean, I think it's quite apt that one of Coronation Street's most sedentary characters is a non-mover on this poll.
Nice one.
So let's move on to number 16. Quite fascinating, this one. Alma Sedgwick / Halliwell / Baldwin. I wouldn't have put her that high. I can't quite put my finger on it. She was decent, and we've seen just little bits of her, haven't we, on the DVDs? Because she came in the early 80s in Jim's Cafe, very youngish looking. Who plays her? Amanda Barry. And then she disappeared for a bit and hasn't hit her stride yet, hasn't hit her golden years, which I would say was the 90s. So thinking about Coronation Street's timeline, Alma really only made a splash for 10, 12, 13 years. So for a character who had a relatively short legacy to get to number 16 in the poll, means that she made pretty decent impact.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is an example of what I was saying earlier about how the story of your life and whether you've got a satisfying sort of beginning, middle and end as a character, how that can affect your legacy. Right? So Alma obviously had one of the most tragic endings in soap, didn't she?
Yeah.
Dying of cancer with, and Audrey sort of almost, missing out on saying goodbye to her friend, and the growth that she had from her beginning as like just being a sort of irrelevant kind of wife of the owner who didn't really care into being like embroiled in some...
Yeah, I think what you're saying about her death is quite important. I think that counts quite a lot for her. I think when people think Alma, they think gone before her time.
Yeah, tragic.
If only tragic. Let's give her a 5 maybe.
And wasn't it one of the the first big cancer storylines on Corrie, and it sort of went from the beginning of the diagnosis all the way through.
Yeah, and it
had a
was
massive impact.
It did, and it was quick, and it was criticised, the story, wasn't it, for seemingly progressing quicker than it would in real life, because they wanted to get it out the door.
I don't know
get it done in time for Amanda's contract. I don't know. I can't remember.
I don't know what
specifically
the cancer was and how it was portrayed differently to what the real disease would be like.
This is what I have read.
But we all know, we've heard stories of people that get diagnosed and then next week they're dead. So.
Oh yeah, I know. But she was a strong character. She was one of the few people that could, stand up to Mike and sometimes win. She knew her own mind.
She was also a bit different from many of the other women in the street in that she felt more. She was a bit more socially upwardly mobile than a lot of the other women who just, they were born on the back streets and they worked in a factory and or a shop and that was it.
Yeah, I mean she was a businesswoman, wasn't she?
She wasn't necessarily better or cleverer or anything than anybody else, but she just had that confidence of being a middle class person.
Yeah.
And that kind of affluence that gives you the cushion that you need to sort of bounce around from success to failure to success again, which working class people don't have.
She went on and into like independent catering kind of things we've been seeing on ITV3 recently. She's just sold the cafe to Roy, which has put in that into a new era. We're watching her romance with Stephen Reed, which is a little bit cringy and a little awkward. But yeah,
there aren't very many independent business women characters in Coronation Street's history. If you take every single person who's ever been in it, but the ones who are seem to be a bit more interesting, and sort of score higher because they've got different kinds of storylines, and their stories don't have to revolve around who they're shagging or what they're...
Yeah, and hers didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked her. She was nobody's fool, was Alma. Still think she's a little bit high, but...
I have to say I'd give her definitely at least number 16, which is what she's got, for her popped collars. I thought she was such a sharp dresser. I really enjoy watching her fashion. I think if I watched Corrie when she was in it, I'd be like, I want to look like that.
Where'd you get that?
She's got such great hair as well.
Oh, she has, raven black. Now, from somebody who's nobody's fool to somebody who is many people's fool, number 15, we've got Mavis Wilton, who has sadly dropped 10 places. She was at number 5 in the 2010 poll. Not surprised that she's not that high anymore. I don't think it, with hindsight, she is a top 5 character, sadly.
No.
But she was a great, and I've enjoyed seeing you grow to love her more in our DVD rewatches.
I really think the good thing about watching all this through is that I'm pretty sure I'm going to want to watch it all again at a later point, and I'm getting to see revisiting Mavis when she originally appeared in it. Now I like her more, appreciate her more. It's going to be quite interesting.
It's just she's mostly remembered as the double
wet blanket,
the wet blanket, the one half of two great double acts, Mavis and Rita. And Mavis and Derek.
Rita bullies the hell out of Mavis.
Well, so does Derek in some ways, doesn't he?
Mavis.
Derek, I mean, what we're seeing at the moment, at least, in late 80s, he's completely oblivious to the fact that he's totally using her while he's married to Angela, but still going to see her because Angela is
mean.
too mean for him. And all the way through, he's just so arrogant and so often he doesn't consider her feelings. But as a comedy duo, they were just perfect. The chemistry between Thelma and Peter was just brilliant. And I love... This is interesting because in many ways, Mavis is the sort of buffoon that we're currently berating Gail for being. But because, that's her character...
She's been consistently
it feels like it works.
That. It's not like... I mean, Gail didn't used to be quite as pathetic as she is now.
No.
Whereas Mavis has just been consistently
drippy, and
waffly,
dithery, and it's always true to character.
She draws people's scorn.
Yeah, but I am also enjoying watching her with Derek, and she knows, like, seeing her roll her eyes when Derek goes off on one, and putting up with him. She's got a bit of a backbone, I suppose. But really, really great character. Sad to see her drop, not surprised, and she's sadly declining in relevance. I mean, it's been over 20 years since she's been in the show, and she gets mentioned every now and again when Rita goes up to Cartmel. I'm still holding out hope that maybe one day we'll see a Mavis return, if only for a cameo. But I think Thelma has ruled that out. But never say never. Maybe for Rita's exit, Mavis would come back. That would be absolutely glorious.
Speaking of
Rita, I didn't even notice that.
This is really interesting to me, actually.
Really interesting.
Because Mavis hasn't been in it, like, as you mentioned, for years, whereas Rita is a current character.
Yeah, dropped 7 places. She was at 7, now she's at 14. Not too surprised at the drop, because she has declined in importance in the street in recent years, hasn't she? I mean, she's getting on a bit, and I wouldn't say that now she's as relevant as she was. And I think perhaps Rita is an example of somebody who, had she left the show, 10 years ago, she might still have retained that high rank. But because she has, she doesn't make many appearances these days, especially since she's no longer, the front and centre in the cabin. Does that count against her? And maybe once Rita leaves, perhaps those rose-tinted spectacles, those rose-tinted spectacles will come back on again, and people go, "No, Rita, she is an all-time classic.
I don't think it's rose-tinted spectacles. I know what you're saying. I think she's another character like Emily, who I didn't appreciate really until I had seen them grow from being relatively young women to where they are now on the street, and it really helps you to put them into perspective. I think it's kind of hilarious how much of an old wise woman Rita is when she was such a flighty bird when she first came in. I mean, she was sort of one of the... Obviously...
she was brought in as a vamp, as
sexy kind of rival to
Elsie Tanner.
Yeah.
Rival for Valen's affections.
Well, yeah, and also sex appeal, because she was an exotic dancer.
Yeah, and the singer. I've enjoyed seeing her nightclub phase. I mean, now she's stuck behind the counter at the cabin, isn't she, in the DVD?
She gets behind that counter relatively quickly, to be honest.
She does.
I really did enjoy having her on,
Some great stories over the years. She, I mean, when we were watching Len's death in 1983, she was such a fantastic performance. Barbara Knott's could really be, she could knock it out of the park when called upon to, couldn't she? I've loved seeing her stuff with Jenny.
Yes.
We're just about to hit the real climax of the anti Alan Bradley story, because he's still not properly gone bad yet, where we're up to, has he? And then throughout the 90s
just a bit
again,
grumpy.
really it just rises in importance, really.
I think 14 is a really good place for
I think it is.
Rita.
I think it is.
I was surprised to see that she was number 7 in 2010. I assume that was because she'd been in some high profile stuff.
Possibly, I don't know. I mean, the tram crash hadn't happened at that point, but she's definitely one of the all-time greats.
Yes.
But I don't know whether the greatest of the greats, although I'm sure quite a lot of people would have her as their favourite character. That wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if somebody said, Rita, she's my favourite, because there's just something about her that's just like,
I really like
there's a bit of magic there.
Barbara Knox obviously has got a lot of gravitas.
Oh, yes.
I will say that the writers are in danger of turning her into a bit of a sort of one-note cliche of trotting out wisdom, which honestly, when Rita says it, I don't know if she believes herself, because she just seems so pleased with dispensing wisdom.
Yeah,
it's like she's a fortune cookie.
Tell you what though, looking back on this year, I think one of my favourite moments, and I don't know whether it'll be in the top 5 when we do that on Patreon next month, was at the end of the 10,000th episode, and her and Jenny were together in the Rovers, and Rita was walking around looking at the photos and all the echoing clips, and she was telling Jenny, "Oh, you're the best daughter I could have ever asked for." That was lovely stuff.
Yeah, lovely jubbly.
Yeah, but
I mean, Rita, definitely legacy character.
Yeah, absolutely. She used to be hard, so she's been softened as old age can do to you. She's not going to end up being, one of the old battle axes in the same way as Ina or Evelyn or anything like that. But yeah,
I like the fact that she's a wise old bird. I just don't know where she thinks she's coming off giving people advice, considering what she...
Now, number 13, I'm going to pass right over to you. This is a very pleasantly high position for this character, because even though Becky McDonald is one of our all-time characters, you kind of feel that you're a bit special for liking Becky. It's like she's my out there pick. as a really
she's
great Corrie
obviously
character, but not at all.
Not well. The thing is, we also need to just re-establish the fact that this isn't a quiz. This isn't a survey that was given to every single person who watches Coronation Street. This was given to people who are hardcore enough to go to a Wikipedia dedicated to Coronation Street to do a quiz with 300 plus characters, or to listen to this podcast, or to go online and find this. You don't get given this at the end of every episode of Coronation Street by ITV to go and do this survey. This is people who are
market
super
research
into Coronation Street. So from that perspective, this is a bit of a seal of approval of like the people who are really into Corrie. What do they actually like? And Becky McDonald is number 13.
Yeah, gone up 5 places since 2010 for no particular reason. She left in early 2012, so she had a bit more in her.
She had
year and a half or so.
Fantastic ending. Another one that had a fantastic ending.
Really satisfying.
She flew off to go and live on a holiday for the rest of her life with a beautiful boyfriend and son.
Yeah, new adopted child. Yeah.
And she had a great final line. She's another one who visually is very distinctive. She had her own style. Catherine Kelly obviously is an actress who, since she has left, has gone on to greater and greater prominence.
Yeah, Miss Southbridge. What else has she done?
She did that Criminal.
She's just on a Netflix at the moment.
Class.
Maybe not the high point of Catherine Kelly's career,
but she's widely recognised as being a talented actress.
She's one of the few who have escaped
Built
Corrie.
a career after Corrie.
Yeah, exactly. Much like Saran Jones, who we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But I mean, Becky was just wonderful. She was in the mould of street urchin.
Can I just tell you an interesting
good.
fact?
You can.
Catherine Kelly was actually the second actress to play
I know.
Becky McDonald, and funnily enough, the first time she appeared, she was credited as beggar.
Oh really?
So they go urchin.
Yeah, she was. She was like a ne'er-do-well living on the streets. I think the first appearance. I think it was like Hayley was going to do something, was helping out at somewhere or some community do-gooderish meeting, and Becky's there begging for money.
She had a background that could lead you to understand how she ended up. She was being abused by her stepfather. She left home. She ended up homeless. It's a very common and tragic story for why many young people end up on the streets. They get kicked out of their house or they leave because of parental or domestic abuse. Life wasn't kind to Becky for a long time.
Yeah.
Was it until she...
Well, it's Roy and Hayley, wasn't it? And getting in with such a beloved couple was a real helping hand for that character, as if she needed it, because Catherine Kelly was fantastic is a fantastic actress, real asset to Corrie. And I honestly do believe that if she'd decided that she wanted to stay on Coronation Street, she could have very easily just risen up and up and up and been a bit of a new Bette Lynch. But sadly, her time was cut short after I don't know how many years, 5, 6, 7 years maybe, and then it's gone. She didn't make a long mark on Coronation Street's history compared to some of the other names that we've got here, but she came in with such a bang. She was so vivacious, so in your face, lovable,
and it's honestly
hard.
Difficult to think of anybody who has joined the show in the last 10 years who's anywhere close to what Becky's like. Is there anybody like her now?
Abby?
Abby's probably the closest, you're right. I mean, I think they want Gemma to be sort of a...
Yeah, batting at the wrong tree there. Batting up the wrong tree? That's not the word.
Abby's probably the most promising new female character for that mould, of sort of a...
It feels like Abby's not quite as developed yet, and she's not... I mean, when Becky was in the show, they pushed her to the forefront, and Abby does a big thing for a little bit and then goes off for a bit.
Yeah, they're not centering Abby as much as they did with Becky.
I mean, putting Becky in the pub, married to Steve McDonald, front and centre at the Rovers, did wonders for that character.
Dating Kevin is not doing Abby any favours.
Not particularly, but Becky. I don't know whether in the all-time greats of Coronation Street 13 she deserves to be that high, but as I said at the beginning when we started discussing her, she's one of the ones that you think, she's one of my favourites. I don't think anyone else likes her, but as much as we do. But she's one of our favourites, so I am chuffed to bits that she's so high. and has only risen since the 2010
that is interesting.
poll.
That is very interesting. But like I said, that 2-year difference of the exit probably made a bigger difference than you think.
Quite possibly. Ina Sharples, number 12.
Just missing out on top 10, probably one of the most famous visually characters.
I'm just having a look at who we've got left on the list, and I wouldn't say there's any surprises that are coming.
No.
So when you think of who are the all-time great Corrie characters, name me a Corrie character. These are the names that you are going to get told.
Names.
Maybe starting with even Rita, but Ina Sharples is one of the old guard who will always be remembered and is never going to drop out of the top 15, 20.
Looking at these characters, what you said about Becky sort of being a bit of an out there pick is sort of like a, you know, if you're in the know, you'll pick Becky, but if you're not knowledgeable about Coronation Street, you won't. The reason you're saying that is because all these other people are just so iconic that she kind of stands out a little bit, honestly, because she's a relatively new character and she wasn't in it for very long. But, you know, Ina Sharples
20 years of tyranny over the streets with a milk stout in the pub. Just wonderful. Vi Carson.
What a titan.
Titan is right. I've loved watching her. Again, she fizzled out a little bit towards the end.
Unfortunately,
she was a real force to be reckoned with. I just seem to be spouting cliches because so much has already been said about
you can't
the
say
excellence.
anything
You can't
new
say
about
anything
her.
new about her, and maybe some of the others that are in the top.
She's gone
10,
down one rank from last time.
Yeah.
She was 12.
She was number 10
11th.
before.
No,
she was
11th.
11th before you're right, and then
Now
she's 12.
she's 12. She did. Is she a top 10? Should she be in top 10?
Yes. I'm going to say yes. I don't know where in my top 10 she would be right now.
If I'm looking at the list of people who are above her, I would definitely put her higher than like at least a couple of them.
Yeah, she is a proper icon for the ages. That image of her, the famous one that's on the steps at the Coronation Street Studios where she's looking out,
what a legacy,
gritty grey Salford beneath her.
Yeah,
she is
surveying her kingdom.
For many, the face of Coronation Street, and battle axes have come and gone since, and there may be more to come in this list. But to me, she is, I think, a bit of an ultimate Corrie battle axe, and she was a battle axe that didn't also have the humour, because yes, we have got Blanche to come still, but she was just like terrifying yet still lovable and
compelling.
And Blanche was a comedy
Hypnotic.
character, and Ina wasn't. She was.
No.
She was just
she had comedic lines and things.
She did. But as a force to be reckoned with.
I think
Ina tops Blanche.
I think there are one of the things I think that makes an iconic Corrie character is, could you draw them? Could you draw them and everyone guess who you're trying to do, even if you're not very good at drawing? Like, can you boil them down to, like, you're not even going to put features on the face, you just sort of do an outline of what they look like. Everyone would know what Ina Sharples looks like.
There's a YouTube episode for us, Gemma.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's probably why the male characters aren't as sort of popular, I guess. But
she had the costume, the stature.
I mean, it's all very. It sounds a bit vacuous and kind of shallow to boil people down to their appearance, but it's not just that. It's not an accident that they look the way they do. The characters are developed or cast. The actors are cast because they fit into this kind of archetype of whatever character they're trying to be.
Yeah, interestingly, Tony Warren's original idea for Ina Sharples was a much thinner, frailer, blanchy type woman, and they tried to cast people with a much slighter frame and a kind of a crankety, witchy kind of woman, and then Vi Carson was a late suggestion, and it was just perfect.
I think it's
can't think of
because
anyone else with the role since.
Older women of a certain age are very rarely physically imposing, are they? But Ina was.
Yeah.
Ina could probably knock you out with her handbag if she really wanted to.
She broke a window.
Exactly.
Love her. I can say no more about Ina Sharples. She was great, and
she was a moral crusader, wasn't she?
She was,
and like guardian of like decency on Coronation Street.
Yeah.
That
also
led to
a
lots
curtain
of
twitcher.
really interesting conflicts with her neighbours and lots of good.
She wouldn't back down in an argument.
No.
Right, number 11. Raquel, who has once been my favourite character. When I first started watching it, I absolutely love Raquel. I'm quite interested to see that she has not only stayed high on the list, but risen quite a lot. She's jumped up 9 places from before. I think that the ITV3 repeats have absolutely got a lot to do with this, because in the past 2-3 years, we've seen her come and go. Sadly, she just left. We reached 96. She wasn't. She burned brightly. I mean, Becky McDonald, Raquel, they probably had similar tenures. Somebody was probably going to correct me on that one. But as an absolute lovable character, and
she's got a lot going for her to make her number 11. It doesn't feel like a mistake to me. Not just the fact that she's been in Classic on ITV, but she's also, I think, the success of Sarah Lancashire as an actress has caused some people perhaps to revisit the character of Raquel and acknowledge how fantastic a performance it was by Sarah Lancashire.
Absolutely.
Because I can't believe anybody watching Happy Valley could imagine her playing somebody like Raquel.
She was just
probably
what a brilliant in-role character actress.
Absolutely.
Sarah was.
The story about her refusing to take her high heels off in between takes because she didn't think Raquel would. It's that it's the sort of thing that people make fun of actors for sort of method acting and all that stuff, but obviously it makes a big difference. And that's why she's number 11, even though she was, what I love arguably a not really important character.
Yeah, oh gosh, no, I wouldn't say that she was important.
But a beloved one.
Yeah, she didn't have the big stories, but the her going back and forth between Curly and Des, all that was so gripping, and I think at the time, I've said before in the podcast, I was a total shipper if they had those things back then for Curly and Raquel, but rewatching it in the last year or so, I can see that she wasn't really right for him, and when she was in floods of tears on the day of their wedding, it was because she knew, and we've just seen her leave, and she did fizzle out a little bit. I didn't like her when she started her aromatherapy, but that was the beginning of the end, but I'm looking forward to the Millennium Return. She
reinvented herself.
Yeah.
And that was probably a significant part of her legacy, is that return in the Millennium. When they gave her,
2 episodes, one really.
She came back for New Year's Eve,
yes.
right? So giving that slot of arguably one of the most important days, not that anything happened at the Millennium, but it was a day that we had been waiting for in pop culture for 20 years. 2000 was a word that you added to things to make them seem cool and futuristic and fun. And all the way through my life, I remember, I kind of felt like everything was building up to the year 2000, and that was the benchmark that everybody said, in the year 2000 this will happen, and this will happen, and this will happen. To give her a big storyline for New Year's Eve in the year 2000.
What importance they gave to her.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I already said this, she's not an important character as far as stories go, but, but she was important to people
because
sentimentally.
she was sentimentally. People just adored her, and the thing I would say about Raquel that I've said as well before is that you would laugh at her when she was silly, and when she was going out with Wayne and she didn't realise that he was playing away, and all the ditzy, stupid, ridiculous things that she did. But then when other people called her silly, or when people took advantage of her silliness, the characters did, like when Tanya Pooley sent her off to an Armani shoot, which was actually the market Armani, and all that kind of. It broke your heart to see other people taking advantage of her and making fun of her. She is, but
Emma's not as sexy as Raquel.
She's not. She doesn't have.
She doesn't rely on her looks as much.
Of it.
Raquel relied on her looks to get her through life.
Well, she was a modelling all the way through. She felt that modelling was the right career for her, and I think she just realised at the end that actually was kind of chasing a ridiculous dream, and Emma doesn't have those.
Emma's got a bit more
self-confidence,
I think, 'cause she doesn't sort of rely on what other people think of her. As Raquel, I think, was chasing people's acceptance because she knew she wasn't very bright.
Yeah, we haven't had anyone, as far as I know, take advantage of Emma yet and make fun of her silliness of it. And I think Emma is a bit more switched on than Raquel in many ways. But yeah, obviously
but they're both
the
sweet,
similarities.
And you want to put them in your pocket and take them and protect them and put cotton wool around them.
Yeah, and as long as they don't turn Emma into too much of a tragic character, which there is a risk of happening, she could certainly rise up the ranks over the next decade, maybe, possibly being as beloved. It's difficult to imagine anybody ever reaching the ranks of some of these really high ones, but she could go up there if they invest in Emma, which I think they really should, because Ali is a fantastic actress.
Was the Raquel and Curly two-hander, was that the first time they ever had a two-hander?
It was, yes.
There you go.
Right, number 10. We have reached the top 10 at last, and we're already spent as long on this reactions episode as we spent for the whole of the last one, and who knows how much longer we've got left.
That's why I was being mean to you at the beginning and trying to get you to start.
Elsie Tanner, Gemma.
No, definitely a
drop one place, but
Elsie Tanner is definitely a top 10 character. Whether or not she is number 10, I don't know, but she definitely deserves to be in the top 10.
Tell you what, Darren Little is not pleased that she's only reached number 10. He wanted her to be higher. He's made that very clear on Twitter. But
I mean, she was 9th before 10th.
Yeah, she's
retaining.
Yeah, she's a bit of a non-mover. She is another name like Ina Sharples that's synonymous with Corrie of Days Gone By.
Yeah,
she's reached legendary status.
I do only foresee a sort of continuing lack of knowledge about her, though. That's the sad thing about a lot of these old names.
Lost the relevance, maybe.
I mean, now Dennis is dead as well. There's nobody left.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that Dennis was particularly keeping the Elsie legacy alive particularly.
I
suppose with Rita,
I think Rita's the only
Rita's still
one,
a Tanner, isn't she, at the moment? She hasn't changed.
Rita's the one that knew Elsie, and they were,
one of my biggest things. One of the things I'm most grateful for, or pleased with, that has come out of watching these old episodes, is really getting to know Elsie Tanner, because like some of the other characters, she was ones that we didn't really know much about. Even like Ina Sharples, I had a better idea in my head, even though we'd not seen many episodes of her, of what she was like. I had an idea about what Annie Walker was like, and with Elsie 12 months ago, apart from sexy siren character, I couldn't say much more. But having watched all the episodes now, I can see why she was so beloved, especially in the early days. First 15 years of Elsie Tanner,
probably
absolute icon.
One of Britain's earliest television sex symbols. She was like UK's version of Hollywood celebrities. The way that the Corrie stars used to act and how they used to think of themselves and their importance to British culture, it was like mini Hollywood. Like she was swanning around with a fur coat on and opening businesses and being accosted on the street by fans and answering letters in character. A massive star, and she knew it as well.
So that's it for the actress, but what makes the character a definite top 10 for you, would you say?
Well, the thing is about Elsie Tanner is that she left, didn't she? And then she came back, and I thought her return was fairly weak. But
putting her in with Edward Gale and Susie.
I think she started off really strong, and it was Patricia Phoenix's portrayal of her, and the fact that it was kind of a warts and all look at a woman who was
past her prime,
moving into a stage in her life where she wasn't quite sure how to get the attention. She was used to being like the belle of the ball during World War II, and she'd had all the GI soldiers in, and she had a heyday that we had missed. Like, the show just missed that, and it's watching a woman sort of struggle with ageing. And
I mean, I think that was it. Her very first line was the "fit for the knackers" yard line. At the very least, in the first episode, that sums up Elsie, doesn't it? Somebody who was a good time girl during World War II, and now she's facing the realities of of growing older, and she was only 37.
God,
when the character was first in it.
Part of the appeal of many of these older characters is that I think the scripts were much tighter and more considered, and I don't want to put anybody down, but I think it's clear that the amount of people involved in the show dilutes some of it, these days, and everything's faster and you've got to put out 6 episodes a week. The first 10 episodes were all written by Tony Warren, right?
I don't know.
The episodes at the beginning just felt like they had a bigger, more cohesive vision, and everything was tighter. And
all the writers knew the characters. And one of the things that Matilda Freeman said when I was speaking to her last week is that sometimes she felt that some of the writers didn't know Summer because they hadn't written for her before.
I know. I think that's terrible. Honestly, I understand that there's different. There are different challenges now than there used to be, and you can't have one writer or just and they don't even sit together in a room. Obviously, they couldn't do that now anyway, but. The reason why these legendary characters are still high in the list is obviously there's nostalgia and sentimentality, but it isn't just that. It's not like we're all like you said, rose-tinted glasses. It was tighter and it was better, and they rehearsed, and the actors knew the characters, and that's one of the reasons why Elsie Tanner was such an interesting character to watch, because she was really well developed, and she was one of these characters based on women that Tony Warren observed in his real life.
Yeah, the strong matriarchal types.
About their characters and wanted, the best. And I'm not saying, this is the thing, I don't want anyone to come away from this thinking, oh yeah, we don't think that they care, or it's not being written as well. I just think the amount of people and the perspective has changed, and
you're right. When there's a smaller cast, smaller set of writers, there's going to be
it's easier to keep track of everybody.
Yeah,
and all the characters back in the day were in more scenes, more stories, and they all knew each other, and they all felt like they were part of a community, and the interactions. And I've said this before on the show. To me, it's not the stories that are the interesting part of any soap. It's the interactions between the characters and the conflicts that they bring up. That's why Oliver's story, even though it's a very sad story, is really interesting to me. And normally I shy away from medical stories, and I hate them because they're so depressing. But this story gives you a chance to observe all these different characters' reactions to the tragedy, and and how do you navigate this situation, and what do you say to somebody, and how do you react if you get told.
Yeah, I with Elsie, I just think that she was like Ina, a force to be reckoned with. I think that as rivals in the early days of Coronation Street, there was nothing better. A woman who could stand her ground, didn't care what anybody thought about her, and didn't come across as being, mardy and annoying, and
she was real.
No, yeah, and you weren't saying, oh, shut up, Elsie, stop having a go at him, stop having a go at her.
Than that, was she?
No, absolutely not.
She was realistic, and she felt real. That's the thing I liked about it. I've got a fact here from
Corriepedia.
I also want to say it's really difficult to talk eloquently about things you're passionate about and like, because Elsie Tanner is one of my favourite characters, and I really can't articulate why. It's really frustrating. Anyway, CoronationStreet.fandom.com, fact about Elsie Tanner. A 1980s story where Elsie's house caught fire and her clothes were burned was concocted by the writers as a way of wresting back control of Elsie's wardrobe from Patricia Phoenix. The actress was notorious for choosing not only the most expensive and glamorous was notorious for choosing only the most expensive and glamorous outfits for her character, regardless of the fact that Elsie would not be able to afford such a wardrobe.
That's so funny.
Didn't
know that one. That sounds like her to a T.
If you read her autobiography, she talks a lot about how proud she is of picking the wardrobe, and they must have been like, oh, here she comes again.
Right, we have got a riser at number 9. Still somebody who was fairly high up in the last character ranking. He was 15 this time, and yes, that's right, it's a he. It's another guy. It's Roy Cropper.
He's not the final guy.
He's not the final guy. We've got one left. I think you know who it is. But yeah, Roy. I think a lot of people, so many people have got an awful lot of affection for Roy, and it's been funny seeing him just over the summer and autumn, him arriving on Coronation Street in 1995, 96, can't remember, and how he was a bit of a different character back then. He wasn't just a bit like Rita is now, a dispenser of wisdom. And I know that Roy is a much more important character to the show currently than Rita is, I would say. But he has kind of settled into that nice old man that you'd want to have as your granddad sort of role, hasn't he? So for that sort of affection, I'm not surprised he's got that high. But you can't just run on that. You can't just cruise on. Oh, isn't he a nice guy? I think it's his
eccentricities.
It's his eccentricities. It's his relationship with Hayley, which is one of the all-time great relationships on Coronation Street. And when you say all-time great anything on Coronation Street, automatically you have to cast your mind back 30 years, because often it's the ones in the 70s, 80s, 90s that long-term Corrie fans hold most dear. So we've got this relatively modern relationship that has everyone just adores. He's just an all-round solid, lovely, nice bloke, isn't he?
I think the thing that people like about Roy is that he is obviously challenged at times by how to navigate the world of social interactions, but he never stops trying, and he draws comfort and strength from his interactions with people. And I know that the canon of the show is that Roy is not autistic. He doesn't have Asperger's or anything like that. But I think that you don't have to have a label on to have social anxiety, or to know that perhaps sometimes in certain situations you feel a bit awkward. I think everyone does, and that's why people relate to Roy, because he can be really awkward, but he manages to bounce through because his earnest desire to be fair and sort of meet people where they are.
Yeah, he's got a real moral compass, hasn't he?
He really does. He sticks up for what's right, and he gives everyone a chance, and I don't think he's very prejudiced.
No.
And I think that's what we like about Roy as like a collective. He tells you what he thinks. He's very honest, but he's not brutally honest like some of the other characters can be.
Yeah.
He's just a very earnestly fair-minded, slightly socially awkward person who we all can see ourselves in a little bit, but it's taken to the extreme.
Yeah, you're right.
And I also think this sort of, talking personally from my own experience, the kind of person who sits there and does an hour and a half's worth of talking about a character survey, or completes a character survey about characters from a soap, I can definitely feel some affinity for somebody who's obsessively nerdy about things and also socially awkward. So it's not surprising to me that everybody who's done this survey voted him so high, because we're obviously all a bunch of nerds.
Yeah, he's not the sort of person that people go, oh, what an annoying do-gooder, where some characters in the show do. You kind of want him to come out on top, because he's like, the little part of you that's like, you know that Roy's way is the right way, and he's so morally upstanding, and
he doesn't always take the easy path as well. That's the thing.
He fights what he believes is real.
He after Hayley died, and he was so angry with her.
Yeah.
And he wasn't likable then at all. But you could understand where he was coming from.
Yeah,
and he's had real big challenges in his life.
And he's similar to Raquel as well, in the way that he's somebody you want to just protect.
Yeah.
Isn't he? Somebody who's not particularly equipped to cope with this modern world, but still absolutely lovable.
Well, so somebody that becomes a victim to other people's manipulations, whether well-meaning or self-serving or whatever they are.
Yeah.
He's sort of like a victim to people's artifice.
Yeah.
Occasionally, and it takes a really good person to but he attracts these people. He attracts these good people to him who can deal with his eccentric way of looking at the world, and he brings out the best in some characters too, like he did with Becky,
yeah.
like he did a bit with Fizz, he and Haley, and I mean he
even Evelyn
Wayne,
as well, in some ways. Yeah.
Sylvia.
Yeah, he helps people to show the very best of themselves. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
He brings out some really unique. He brings out the unique aspect to some characters that you might not ever get a chance to see. I think he's been really important part of Carla's story recently as well, and the fact that he obviously was married to Haley, or was in a relationship with Haley, who's also a very beloved character. But he's managed to survive that character leaving the show.
Yeah, just about. I mean, he had a long period where he wasn't doing much. But
he had a period where the writers wanted to pair him up with Kathy because they thought that he was only good as a double act, because obviously he can be so awkward. They kind of maybe felt like he needed a translator, which Haley was sort of that to him for quite a long time. Like, to sort of translate his well-meaning yet slightly strange reactions to people.
Bringing in this secret brother Richard and his niece Nina was slightly retconny, but I think it's done the character good.
Works in the
even
long
though we're not seeing a whole lot of interactions between Nina and Roy, are we, at the moment? They don't have lots of scenes together. I think that they need to be careful that they don't let that drop.
Yeah.
Because they were both two oddballs, for lack of a better word, together, and he and Nina were, and they bounced off each other well. Yeah, she has, but she's kind of going off on her own, and it's often just her there in the cafe at the moment, not her and Roy.
A lot of
maybe
it's
a bit
COVID,
easy, isn't it? Yeah. Right, number 8, Bet Lynch. Now here's another Corrie icon, another like you said, you could draw her with Ina. If you think of all-time great Corrie characters, this is one that's going to be remembered. I absolutely love Bet Lynch, and she is. You were talking earlier about characters that have a journey,
yes.
and she's, for me, one of the ones who we've seen come from nothing, plastic factory girl, PVC factory girl, to barmaid, to Roby's landlady, to cast out because of she couldn't afford it and she lost all her friends. I think
that of all the big characters that have left, who had exit stories, hers was the weakest probably in terms of establishing a sort of a. She kind of fizzled out, didn't she? She just couldn't afford to buy the robes, so she left.
And there ended up being some bad blood between her and Vicky and her and Rita, and then she had that failed comeback. So it's a shame how it ended, but. I don't think
that's enough to obscure her legacy.
While she was at her prime, she was, tip top, wasn't she?
Absolutely fantastic. I think it's fair to say a big gay icon as well, because she has the look of a drag queen about her because of the massive accessories and the wigs and the hair pieces and the leopard print and the cleavage and the putting all her assets on show, her kind of overly confident manner of dealing with people, her sarcasm and her wit.
And I think as well she's also underappreciated by some viewers or some people who maybe didn't see her, and when they think back to Bet, they just think, oh, she was just that loudmouth barmaid come landlady. She didn't have much going for her, but actually watching her, Julie Goodyear was a supremely talented actress, and she could do the comedy, she could do the charm, she could do the sarcasm, she could do the heart-wrenching, gut-churning tragedy when she needed to.
Yep.
Just phenomenal.
I think because a lot of these actors
top 10 for me
make it look really easy. You kind of don't appreciate what massive skill it takes, and like loads and loads of bags of self-confidence that she had to come out there and be Bet Lynch.
I love her. I feel like we need to speed up a little bit in this top 10, otherwise we're going to be there forever, but I mean I can sing Bet's praises forever.
She's honestly, of all of the characters that we've watched since the beginning of the show, Bet Lynch is the one that surprised me the most.
That's exactly what I found when I was watching her on the repeats.
She's such a deep character. She's had
I
such a journey.
didn't realise just how deep a character that she was. At first glance, at surface level, she's just a buxom barmaid, but she is so much more.
She's gone up 2 places too. She was number 10 in 2010, and now she's number 8.
Yeah, and from one Elizabeth to another, at number 7, we've got Betty Turpin. Now, she was at number 8 before, so she's gone up 1 place. This is an interesting one to me, and to be quite honest, and I'm sorry, Betty fans, I don't think that she deserves to be higher than some of the characters that she is higher than. If we think back on Big Corrie's stories, 20. I don't think... Yeah, she is. But even that is partly because she was in it so long.
Yeah, her staying power. I think she had a massive... When Annie was the landlady, I thought that the dynamic between her, Fred, Bet and Betty... That was the best Rovers team we've ever had, and Betty was part of that. And I think she's kind of floundering at the moment in the 80s.
Yeah,
she definitely comes back stronger because she kind of grows more into her role that she had in her later years.
The curmudgeonly.
I think people remember her as being a lot more sweet than she really was. She was a massive cowbag sometimes.
She was a massive grump.
She was
always
a massive diva. She didn't like to be told what to do by anybody, which is unfortunate when you're a barmaid.
She did sometimes feel, a little bit entitled.
I absolutely loved the fact that she came in as a darts champion.
Yeah, that was funny. I think that she had a really strong entrance. I mean, she came in after her sister Maggie, didn't she? Yeah. And completely wiped the floor with her in the character stakes. Scene. And Maggie didn't last a whole lot longer after that, a couple of years
Betty
maybe.
Driver had another one with all these people, great presence.
She did.
She's obviously one of these characters that's left a legacy behind her in the form of the hot pot.
And she's got a photo in the Rovers. She's always going to be fondly remembered.
Yeah.
But I think in terms
longest serving barmaid,
and people have got a lot of affection for her and go, Betty. But I think in terms of overall importance, I wouldn't say that 7 feels quite right for her.
1 or 2 main stories the whole time she was in it.
Yeah, she was a solid background character, and
I loved her.
Oh yeah, I did. I mean, and even in her final years, she was a bit like,
what?
Stop moaning, Betty.
Oh, great! I love moaning people.
But
I'm one of them myself.
But yeah, I can see why she's high, but
sheer consistency
wouldn't be for me. Now, one that's up next, who I really do like.
Crap all over Betty Turpin
I'm not.
5 minutes.
I'm not. I just want to move on to number 6 because I really love Hayley. She's gone up 7 places since the 2010. Partly, I mean, she's got a bit of the Alma factor with a sad death, hasn't she? But she's one that truly does stand the test of time, and like Roy, is just lovable and nice. I mean, you get some characters who are even higher up than this, who are a bit nasty and argumentative and sarcastic and everything. And Hayley was just pure and lovely and warm.
Yeah.
And anyone would want to be her friend.
We talk a lot about social class in Coronation Street because it's a really important part of the show, and the fact that it was about working class people was originally what made it stand out. And a lot of these characters do interact with each other because of their class, like how they interact with each other is different depending on what class they consider themselves to be. Blah blah blah. But Hayley and Roy are like they sort of bring up the idea of social class to me, like not just like monetary, but like the outcasts of society, of people who are overlooked because they don't make up a majority of the population, and
the British public like an underdog, don't they?
And people that are often misunderstood and can be taken advantage of or ignored by society because Roy, arguably not neurotypical, not necessarily something that Coronation Street wants you to think, because I think they're worried about getting it wrong. So if they say he's just, they don't put a label on him, they can't be criticised. But Hayley was a trans woman, and she was a trailblazer for trans rights in this country. That makes her a significant character just in the history of our social culture. But she was one of these people who understood others through her lens of being a trans woman, as somebody who was almost she was a second class citizen, because she wasn't even allowed to get married when she was first introduced. She couldn't change her birth certificate to reflect the gender that
so it's someone whose life was a constant struggle, and she's had to fight
against
and fight.
the government and people who didn't necessarily think that she should even be allowed to exist as the person that she was. So Hayley's like you say, an underdog, but I think how closely we've taken her to our hearts shows that those are the characters that we love more almost than other people, because they're soft-hearted because they've been through so much. And Hayley was always the one who was given everybody the benefit of the doubt, and Roy can be a bit harsher and a bit more judgmental than, like I said, he's just brutally honest. But Hayley was always the one who gave you a chance, and
she understood people more than Roy, doesn't she?
Because she'd been through so much.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
She'd suffered from prejudice. Even we saw it on the show. It wasn't necessarily that reflective of how much prejudice she would have experienced in her real life. She probably would have had a lot more crap to deal with. But she still had names. She got fired when they discovered that she was a trans woman.
Yeah, Mike got rid of her, didn't he? I'm just thinking with the croppers, just looking at who we've got in even the top 15, top 20. There's so many characters that started in the 60s or 70s, and so it's no surprise that they've locked in onto these top 20s, and we think they belong here. And there's not very many people who started in the second half of Coronation Street's history that have managed to secure a place so high. Yes, we've got Becky, which felt like a bit of an odd one, but Roy and Hayley, to me, are the only characters that are in the top 20 maybe that are what I would still class as modern Coronation Street characters, almost post Brian Parks, and I know that Roy wasn't.
In the top 10, only Roy and Hayley are newer characters. So everybody else is legacy, what I would call a legacy character.
And just looking down the list, the next new in inverted commas characters is Evelyn, and then Fred, Karen, Richard, Carla. There's not many, are there? So it's
a significant achievement for
it is an
for
achievement.
Hayley to be number 6.
It takes a lot, because ever since year dot, people have had what's my favourite Coronation Street characters, what's my ranking been, and it's changed over the years, and you've had 373 characters to fight against, and to be able to start relatively late in the game and just leapfrog all these other characters and get to the top 20 is, as you say, a real achievement. But just the sheer loveliness of Hayley,
and obviously I can't speak to what it's like to be a trans woman, but what I want to say is I think Corrie's really good at looking at issues, storylines, and looking at people who are experiencing something beyond the average person or having to endure things, but not patronising the character. Like, Hayley was never patronised by Coronation Street, in my opinion, and I'm not very as sensitive as somebody who's been through it would be. I just think that Hayley could have been such a controversial, divisive character, but she was just accepted because of how Coronation Street wrote her and how sympathetically she was played by Julie Hesmondhalgh. And I know that there's controversy currently about casting. Who do you cast to play a trans woman? It shouldn't necessarily be a cisgendered woman. But and Julie Hesmondhalgh herself has said that she wouldn't accept the role now, right?
Yeah.
I really think that she hasn't appreciated what a fantastic job that she did as Hayley.
Yeah, she really has.
She's such a beloved character.
Yeah, I think what you were saying about I can't remember the word you said actually, but one of the, I just wanted to point out before we move on. One of the things I like about Hayley is when life kicks her, we weren't then just treated to Hayley's having a cry. You know, when you have some characters that you want the audience to feel sorry for, make them cry. You know,
and then we'll feel bad for them.
Yeah, I mean, Rana, in recent memory, you know, Turn on the Waterworks. Oh, isn't it sad? She wouldn't do that. Yes, she had some sad moments, but she could,
Hayley was resilient.
Put it to bed, and she has shown real resilience. And
that Corriepedia's put in her profile. Resilient is probably the word you could use to describe her. She bounced back, and the sort of the sad irony of her life is that it ended because she couldn't.
Yeah,
she couldn't bounce back from.
Yeah, you can't fight everything.
You can't. But she took control in the last stage and decided when to end her life, which is not necessarily the sort of empowering story that you want to hear from the beloved character like Hayley. And it was very sad. It didn't necessarily spark off quite the amount of conversation that maybe Coronation Street wanted it to.
It's still something. It was on the front of the covers of the papers,
but it didn't actually provoke social change in the same way
not yet.
No, and I don't think that we're ready for a conversation about that now, but it certainly put it onto the table.
But a character that came in as a talking point for social change and leaving as one as well seems quite apt to me. We are into the top 5, Gemma. We got 5 women and 1 guy here. Number 5 is Vera Duckworth.
Vera, wow, number 5.
What a great character.
Brought in 1983, although she'd been in for a while before then, hadn't she? She kind of floated about.
Liz Dawn had been a bit of a background character for a little while before Vera was introduced. But larger than life, loud mouth. Definitely had a nasty streak to her, and both she and Jack, who we've not spoken about yet in this top 30 or Weird. 60 even, could both. They weren't exactly the perfect couple when it came to fidelity and talking through their problems, but as a couple who bounced off each other and were just fun to watch, the Duckworths were right up there.
I think also through quite a lot of their early years, I wouldn't say hugely likeable.
No, I don't think so. Certainly not laudable, some of the things that they were doing.
There's nothing about...
characteristics.
I mean, this is me being brutally honest. There's nothing particularly about their introduction or their early years that makes me go, I can see why this couple have gone down in history in Corrie and why they stayed around for so long. Yeah,
they certainly became more sentimentalised in their later years, but just as I think that as a couple who were, clearly made for each other and had great chemistry, yet were always at each other's throats, and Vera wore the trousers in a way, but also Jack sometimes did get one over her. It was relatively equal pegging compared to some other more women-dominated Corrie relationships. I just think they're great, and they've had so many brilliant comedy storylines. All the stuff with Terry was wonderful, but with Vera herself, because I say we'll be able to talk a little bit more about Jack later on. Just a real laugh, a real live wire, so full of energy. Always a big smile. I'm thinking of kind of the early years, and then she goes on when she's put in charge of the pub, and she's trying to do her best, because all the way through, again, rooting for the underdog, the Duckworths were always had a bit of bad luck. They were common. The rest of the street looked down, and Vera's pride upon becoming landlady was just wonderful, and then to kind of see it come crashing down in the late 90s because they just weren't good enough to run a pub. It was sad. And then in their final years, and we got, was it 2008 Vera died, I think. By that point she settled into the nice kind of granny sort of figure that was just so lovable. And then obviously her tragic death, and then her part in Jack's death as well.
Make it sound like she haunted him to death.
A real In a way, she did. And again, a real arc for the character, a real story. Yet, I don't think at any point it felt, no, that character wouldn't do that.
I think we should move on now, because I think we're going to have a lot more to say about Vera in a minute. But I think it's interesting that she was number 2 in 2010 and she's gone down to 5. But then that fact will come up in a bit.
Okay.
Right.
I'm finding it interesting in the top 5, just having a look at some pairs that we've got, because we've got another pair at 4 and 3, haven't we, in a way? So 4, we've got Blanche Hunt, the reigning queen of the 2010 Corriepedia character survey, who has now been dethroned. Blanche Hunt, I mean, there's not going to be any arguing from me about her being a top 10 Coronation Street character.
Blanche so much.
So fascinating seeing her in her early days in the 70s.
I know.
And then she was away from the street for a jolly long time.
Yeah.
For coming back. I've just seen her come back for Tracy's wedding in 96, 97. I'm losing track again.
What was she like then?
She was like the Blanche that we know and love.
Blanche
Hunt is not on this list for how she was in the 70s, let's be fair.
At some point, she transformed from... She could be anybody's mum, you know, in as far as to say, she could be your mum, she could be my mum, she could be Deirdre's mum, she could have been Vera's mum. There's something about her that stood out particularly. She was nice enough. She wasn't bitchy.
She was a bit. I mean, we saw in the 70s, you know, her rivalry a bit with Annie Walker, particularly when Deirdre and Ray were going... Deirdre and Billy were an item.
But there was nothing sort of like, there you go, that character is somebody to watch, was it?
No, but she would speak her mind, and she gave Ray Langton a slap that one time.
I know, but they were all that. Back in the day, women were very quick with their wit, and I think Coronation Street was wittier.
It wasn't until Blanche's return in the late 90s when she came back that was the real transformation
as
for her.
Commas old lady.
Yeah.
She was finally free to give no craps about what anybody said about her. She wasn't trying to be nice to people. Nobody wanted anything from her, like they do with younger women. You know, oh, smile, love, blah, blah, blah. Don't be so mean. She was finally free from her woman cage, and she could be a crone at last.
Yeah, crone is right.
She released the crone energy and became one of Coronation Street's greatest characters of all time because of her no craps given attitude and her funny lines, the great scenes, her sarcasm, her put downs, her weird obsession with death, the 1 o'clock club, going to people's funerals, like macabre, kind of ghoulish in a way.
Yeah, training Amy to be
like some kind of weird psychic.
But also, you know, the softer side with Archie came along as well, and they had a really lovely relationship with those two together. But it's the one-liners, and out of all Coronation Street characters, Blanche is the one who must have been the most fun to write for, or maybe scariest to write for, because whenever she came onto the screen, people are going to be, great, what's Blanche going to say in this scene? And if they don't have her to say some kind of amazing witty put down, then you're a bit disappointed, aren't you?
The Corriepedia has got this line: while most of her peers mellowed with age, Blanche became even more brash and insensitive.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean,
this is the thing about Corrie, though. It doesn't mellow its characters, it cures them like jerky, so they end up being tough and hard to deal with.
Yeah, one of the things that I love about Blanche / Maggie Jones is the fact that she didn't find her funny, and she didn't play her to be funny, did she?
I find that really interesting.
Yeah, but clearly she was written that way, and it was just wonderful use of a side character, and that's all she was. Give her a little role to run with, that's all she needed. And
so acerbic.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I do wonder whether she will continue to drop as the years go on. I mean, in the same way that, say, Ina Sharples isn't as fondly remembered as she would have been, 30 years ago if you were to ask Coronation Street fans to do a survey like this. But it's no surprise that she's still very, very high in so many people's affections. She's certainly not lovable in the same way as Hayley is, or old woman Vera, but for all the memories, for the comedy lines, I mean, we can't talk about Blanche without mentioning the Alcohol Anonymous scene. It feels like it's in some kind of Talk About Blanche contract that we have as a fandom. Super character. The relationship with Deirdre was wonderful, and also she could do the serious stuff with Deirdre as well.
Yeah.
When needed.
I mean, we talk about comedy and about how comedy's only funny when you're punching up, not down. And that's why Blanche was so successful, because unfortunately society has not a high value for women who are older. And so because she was, although they, you know, we pay lip service to the idea of like the mother and stuff. I mean, once you're a grandmother, you start to decline in importance, in status. And because Blanche had a relatively low status as being like the old grandma, she was much freer to sort of speak her mind then. And it was funny because she wasn't attacking people who were lowlier than her. She was attacking people that, you know, were... I don't know, shut up now.
No, that's good. That's fine, yeah.
Right.
Well deserving of a place in the top 10. Not a surprise, Blanche Hunt. Let's get into our top 3. So bronze medal position goes to Deirdre Barlow, who has had a massive jump of 31 places since the 2010 survey, where she came 34th.
Wow.
Not necessarily a surprise that she would jump up, particularly in the light of Anne Kirkbride's untimely passing 5 years ago. I am surprised at quite how high she has jumped, but I mean, definitely a classic character, much deserving of a place higher than 34, I would say, in the poll.
Oh yeah,
maybe not a top 3 one for me, but the evolution of Deirdre has been another fantastic journey to watch over the, how long was she in the show? Another 40 odd years, wasn't she? What do you reckon about Deirdre?
I've loved watching Deirdre in the show, in the vintage
DVDs,
episodes, and watching her sort of start out as this like
Dolly
young
Bird.
housewife. Young like free and single, and then she got, you know, she married Ray, and she had a baby, and kind of.
He does the dirty on her with I can't remember the character's name. I just remember what she looks like. And then off to Ken in this marriage that wasn't necessarily perfect. That's what really hardened her, wasn't it? That's
the thing that made her the interesting character that she turned out to be, because she was put with Ken, and she sort of tried to assert herself, and Ken obviously never really saw her as an equal, and we know that throughout, you know, their relationship on and off again. It always felt like he thought he'd settled and she should be grateful in a way. And I think
so in a way she's a bit of an underdog character.
Yeah, and like her sort of with Samir. That was obviously quite heartbreaking, and then
a character building for her.
And she's got one really iconic story, like the Free the Weatherfield one, that campaign in the papers when she was on trial,
wrongfully imprisoned. She has got some big stories behind her.
She's got
the
the
love
iconic
triangle.
glasses.
She's right. She's got the look.
She's got the looks. She's got the legacy. She's got the relationship, because she was with Mike and Ken at different points. When she first came in, she married Ray Langton, who was one of the major principal male characters. So she's always been very much at the heart of the show. She had to try and juggle, you know, she in the 80s we're watching her now trying to juggle career and raising a family, to the objection of her husband, because Ken is kicking up a stink about the fact that she's a counsellor and she's not spending enough time looking after Tracy, etc.
I think saying that she's in the heart of the show makes me think that she in many ways is the heart of Coronation Street. She family was really important to her, but also she kind of, you know, she knew her mind. She was very strong-willed. I think but she was loving. I just think that heart is a good Deirdre-ish sort of word, and
Yeah, yeah.
and the character that a lot of people did take to their hearts and maybe took for granted a little bit.
Yeah,
So
I
when
think so.
when she suddenly had to leave in late 2014 and then sadly never returned, it was a bit of a
was gone
case of you
too
don't
soon.
realise what you got until
She
you've lost
absolutely
it.
was gone too soon, and perhaps that's kicked people into.
Yeah, she was fun, and she was being made a bit silly.
I think she
But-
was part of the reason that Ken managed to be such a long-standing character, because, like you said, she was fun and Ken wasn't, and she pulled stuff out of Ken that wouldn't necessarily have been there. Their relationship has been one of Ken's biggest stories.
Yeah, I also love the relationship with Deirdre and Liz
Yeah.
as well, friends-wise.
All massive characters.
Yeah,
She's maintained relationships with some of the biggest names on the street, and not everybody who's been around for a long time has got that
And
same.
we've also got Tracy as well to thank Deirdre for, and again, fantastic relationship. They also had a two-hander, those two, back after Charlie Stubbs' cold-blooded murder at the hands of Tracy. Great character. I don't think that she'll stay that high in the ranking if we do this again, but I'm not going to begrudge her a place in the top 5 as we're in the 2020 poll. Number 2, who is our runner-up, Gemma, or the Corrie fandom's runner-up? Another big jump, 12 places. We have got
It is Jack Duckworth.
Jack Duckworth.
This is really interesting to me. I think I'm a bit surprised that Jack Duckworth is so high. We were just talking about Vera. She's number 5 and Jack's number 2. And funnily enough, Jack was 14th in 2010 and Vera was second place. So he's massively jumped huge leaps above Vera.
And I can't particularly think why.
And there's not very many relationships where the man ends up being the more beloved part of the, of the duo.
Absolutely not.
It's almost unprecedented in
we've got
Coronation
Hilda and
Street.
Stan. We've
Roy
got
and
Roy
Hayley.
and Hayley.
I mean, Roy's a current character.
Stephen,
yeah.
Becky,
Stephen,
and
anybody.
Stephen, Karen, Curly and Raquel. The list goes on. The women is often the person that comes on top, and that feels right for Coronation Street. So it's very unusual that Jack's got so high. I mean, he's got so much going for him. Again, real Jack the lad, let's say.
He started off as a
Vera,
massive horn dog.
Yeah, like Vera, their development really went in tandem with each other, didn't they? Like both kind of shady characters who were going off having affairs behind other people's back, and then they kind of grew together.
I'm gonna
everything I
say-
said about Vera, you could say about Jack, and he ended up as being a kindly, nice old man, still a bit of a twinkle in the eye.
I rag on them a lot, to be honest, because Jack and Vera to me aren't the most inspiring of couples. Really, if you look at their story and how they started out, like barely veiled contempt for one another, cheating left, right, and centre, trying to take advantage of each other, it really felt like they didn't really even like each other, let alone love each other.
Although in their middle period on the show, it was often Jack was rebuffing Vera's attempts at seduction, wasn't he? Like she was trying to get him off to bed, and he's like,
no
he'd
thanks.
shudder.
Yeah, that was the ongoing joke.
Yeah, and he would always tell everyone about what a terrible mistake it was that he married Vera, and but you know deep down by that stage he had realised that she was the love of his life.
But they are the longest standing Coronation Street couple.
Are they?
They must be.
I wonder.
How many other couples? I mean, they
maybe you're right.
are they the most successful married couple on Coronation Street? They
quite
started
possibly.
off
At least
the
they had a
very
good 30
beginning,
years. Didn't
they were married and they never divorced.
No.
They didn't. I don't know if they separated because I haven't seen enough of the show. But Jack and Vera, probably, yeah.
And that counts for a lot.
That
and
does.
it just goes to show that when they're splitting couples up left, right, and centre for the drama of it in modern day Corrie, and I don't want to be one of those people that is just
It's too late. We already are.
Maybe Coronation Street should think and invest in long-term relationships.
But the thing is, they can't because there's no ongoing direction. There's nobody in charge of Coronation Street as an ongoing process, and I think there should. This sounds so stupid in a way, But really, it feels like somebody should be put in charge of the legacy of the show. And it's more difficult than
long term.
Yeah. Like, it's more difficult, obviously, than that, because it's not just where are the characters going, but it's who the actors. What do the actors want to do? You can't just trap somebody into being a character for the rest of their life. But it really does feel to me like there needs to be some kind of overarching vision of where the show is going to go.
I'm sure they
do, but the thing is, Michael, when a new producer comes in, they can chuck out everything. They don't need to go. That's why they get scared. The actors get scared when a new producer comes in, because like you can make a name for yourself by getting rid of a bunch of people.
Yeah, I mean the fact that currently
and it was only by accident that Jack and Vera ended up being in the show and turning into this legacy couple.
Yeah.
I mean, not by accident, because obviously the actors are talented and the story blah blah blah, but nobody sat down in like 1970 whatever and went, Jack and Vera have to be in it until 2012.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I know. And currently our longest running couples are people like Tim and Sally, Peter and Carla, even though they've obviously been on and off a lot. Even Johnny and Jenny, who feel like they've not been together very long at all.
Fizz.
Yeah, on and off, but even they've only been together since 2013, I'm going to say.
And it's not, honestly, I know that they're
they need to invest in couples
I don't
more
think I think it's
long-term.
unrealistic, the amount of breakups and the lack of long-term couples on the show. And we don't always want realism from soaps, but...
Yeah. Anyway, great character. The main thing that we could possibly say could be a reason why he's jumped is that we've seen his death since this poll was done in 2010. There hasn't been a whole lot else that he's done, because he died, saw Vera, one of the most tragic, iconic, memorable deaths that could have been oh so wrong, but worked to perfection for me. Absolutely loved it, and maybe that's added a little bit of sentimentality with the voters.
I honestly think that his exit and their reunion was a massive part of his popularity in this poll. He's got a higher standing than Vera. He was in it for a bit longer than she was,
No, he wasn't. Well, yes. she came in a bit before him, though, didn't she?
No, but she died.
She died 2 years before he did. So
in that time, he sort of almost rehabilitated himself further. And when he found out he was dying, he did those like secret acts of kindness and went around and turned into like a fairy godfather for the street, and that was really touching and sweet. For a guy who came in as like a serial philanderer to turn into like the secret
lovable granddad
genie
secret
of and loving, and his relationship even with Connie, I thought that was sweet.
He had his fun in his younger years, but I think as he reached his twilight years, he realised what was important in life, and it's about family, friends, the ones that you love, and I think there's a lesson in there somewhere.
Universal values that we hold dear and perhaps don't prioritise, and when we see characters doing that, it makes us love them more. And Bill Tarmy obviously was massively talented. I can't separate him from Jack.
No, and so funny that he was a background artist in Coronation Street for so long before they said we need to give that man a permanent role.
Why is he here again? We should give him a job.
Right, I think we have reached, Gemma, the conclusion.
Now pairing directly into
you might hear a bit of Abby. She's here to find out who is at number one, because we haven't told her yet. It is Hilda Ogden.
Yay!
Hilda Ogden, number one. She has dethroned Blanche. Last time she was at number 3. Now she's gone right up to number 1. I'm not going to conceal my glee and happiness that she's reached number 1, because Hilda is such a brilliant character. We need to move the cat because she's being really so noisy. She's happy as well.
I love Hilda. She's great.
What an icon. I mean, there's a few characters that are proper up there in iconic status, and Hilda to me definitely is. She's up there with the Betts, with the Ina Sharples.
She's
quite.
Jean Alexander captured Hilda so perfectly. her cheerful, relentless, it's relentless cheer, isn't it?
And optimism in the face of the adversity that was constantly thrown towards her and Stan and Eddie at number 13. She always thought that if she just kept on working at it, at life, she would win.
She was a grafter. She was the hardest working Ogden by a long shot.
So underappreciated by the neighbours.
Oh, everybody.
They all loved her, and when she left, they gave her a proper good send off. One of the nicest goodbyes that any character has had. She didn't just didn't get blown up. She didn't, she didn't slip away into the night. Did you say that was the first Christmas Day episode that was made to be broadcast on Christmas Day, even when the show didn't fall naturally on a Christmas Day? Yes.
So that was the first specially commissioned Christmas Day episode of Coronation Street, and that was Hilda's exit.
Yeah.
And she went off to go and live like your favourite dog when you're a child, in the countryside, frolicking in the fields.
She finally got what she'd been craving ever since she first appeared on the show in the 1960s. I mean,
and a bit of respect, an air of respectability, didn't she? She was sort of catapulted into like this upper middle class existence, as even though she was a servant, basically.
It's the story of the servant who has finally. I mean, she still ended up, but she got the better standing. She got the perfect happy ending, and
she's finally working for a man who appreciated her, which is sad because I don't think that Stan ever really did.
She came into the show excited to be moving to a house that had 2 taps in the kitchen, and now she's working for a doctor in the country. And if that's not character progression, growth, and a satisfying arc, then I don't know what is.
No, I honestly also think that Hilda wouldn't have been very comfortable with anything else, There's nothing wrong with being a cleaner and working a life of service. People like to sort of act as though it's some awful thing that's imposed on people, and perhaps you wouldn't choose it if you could have any job in the world. But there's something, I mean, I come from a family of cleaners and servants. My grandparents used to work on estates, as like my granddad was the groundskeeper, and my nan was the housekeeper of like big mansions of rich folks. I used to be a cleaner when I was younger, so to me, that I think there's a bit of nobility about serving others in a really basic way, and humbling yourself, and being okay with having that kind of status of people that, other people might look down on you or think that you're lesser than because you're a cleaner. But no, everybody has to clean up after themselves. You know what I'm saying? There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And one of the most simple acts of love is a sort of a parent caring and cleaning up after their child. It's a very basic human act. To care for other people, and that's what Hilda did her whole life.
She did, but I mean,
and she took joy and pride, and that's the thing. Taking pride in something humble, I think, is really honourable.
She liked the opportunity for a bit of a gossip as well, like when she was cleaning for Mike Baldwin and finding out. She was not, whiter than white.
She wasn't like the most she wasn't the most selfless person. I only said Mother Teresa then, but we know what Mother Teresa was like. Hilda Ogden came into the show also as like the dragging everybody down to like the chaviest levels of depravity. The Ogdens moving in, everybody was up in arms at this like common family coming in. I remember Hilda leaning out of the window and shrieking down at Elsie Tanner having an argument, going, come on, fight. Jean Alexander's voice as Hilda as well, and her singing.
The malapropisms, the mural, the ducks, the rollers. You can just go on and list all the wonderful memories that Hilda, brings to you when you think about the character. Utter icon, and the fact that there's no particular reason why she should have jumped up higher. I mean, we've had Jean Alexander's death a few years ago. Perhaps that's done something, but she and the clip shows maybe, but she's not had the ITV3 crutch that some of the other characters have had. I mean, she is a true legacy, iconic character, And I don't think that she's going to be slipping down that list at any point in the future if these polls are to be redone.
I have to read out the fact that coronationstreet.fandom.com put in for her trivia, and that is that at the peak of her popularity in 1982, she was named the 4th most recognisable woman in the UK.
I haven't heard that statistic for years.
After the Queen Mother, and Diana. So literally, she is Coronation Street royalty.
Yeah, literally.
Literally.
Yeah, take that, again, Vera.
Literally. And also, apparently, the British League for Hilda Ogden was formed with Laurence Olivier as its president, and Michael Parkinson, Russell Harty, and Sir John. Oh, I don't know how to say that.
I don't know either.
I don't
know.
All founded.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Who was the poet laureate? I know I should know how to say his name.
Betjeman. It's got the phonetic alphabet on Wikipedia.
That's why I opened it for you.
Right, we are done with number one. We and looking at the time, I don't think we can spend too much longer on the after show. But I would like to have a little browse through the rest of the top 373.
Hang on a minute. It depends on whether you want to do a post-mortem of the entire thing at a later date, because we've been going for 2.5 hours.
No, I think let's knock it out.
I'd rather do it another time, but fine. I think we can do it a better job later. Go on.
I'll just say we do it. We just do it.
I know, but we've been going for 2.5 hours.
We've seen the top 60 now. I don't know whether there's any other characters particularly that you want to see how well they did. Or whether we just skip down to the bottom of the list to see where people have come.
I don't know that we want to do the bottom of the list.
It's interesting, there's an awful lot, if you skip down to the bottom of the list, who are characters in the 2010s, aren't they? People who have not changed rank since the last character profile, and we noticed when we were going through the last couple of decades that there were an awful lot of characters that you go, who's that, or they didn't make much of an impact. So I'm not hugely surprised there. But one of the things, we will say pay our respects to poor old Mick Hopwood, who came 373rd in this character profile, with an awful lot of ones, and still 9 people thought he was deserving of a 5, so I don't really know what's going on there. But sorry Mick. And also Claire and Becky Palmer, who, if you're watching ITV3 at the moment, you'll be seeing the people who are hanging around with Des. Maybe that's a bit low for them, but oh well. Corriepedia have also been kind to provide some other extra rankings, haven't they?
Can we just do the demographics?
Oh, you want to do your demographics? Go on then.
We haven't got gender, which is interesting, but we do have the age of people. So we've got under 18s, very small amount. I don't even know what the percentage of that was, but it's pretty evenly split between under 18 to 34, 35 to 50, and 50 plus. It's all like 30% for those. And also, I find this really interesting. What decade did you start watching Corrie? This is fairly even as well.
It is fairly even. That's a surprise.
In fact, the lowest amount is for the 2010s, which is 10%.
Okay.
I wonder whether that's because perhaps if you only started watching it in 2000... Oh, no, it doesn't make sense. I was going to say, if you've only watched it in 2010, you wouldn't need to use Corriepedia, but you would need to use it more because you don't know what anyone's talking about. But Oh no, I've misread this, actually. It was 16% started in 2010.
Okay.
1960s is 10%, 1970s is 21%, 1980s is 23.5%, 1990s 16.3%, and 2000s is 13.3%, and 2010s is 16%.
Yeah.
Do you watch the repeats on ITV3? Almost completely, 50-50, yes and no.
Yeah, so what we were saying about the ITV3 repeats helping boost some characters up the rankings since 2010, I certainly stand by that if half the people that voted are watching it on ITV3 at the moment and seeing the 90s.
Do you own the DVD box sets released by Network, which are the ones we've been working through? And 21% yes, and the rest no. Yeah,
not hugely surprising there. They're not for everybody, and there are a bit of money to...
They're not for everyone. You're not even allowed them. Not everyone's allowed them. You have to be a certain level of cool.
So I want to finish off and have a look at some of these extra lists, as say that Coronation Street .fandom.net has sent us. There's a ranking of current characters, which is quite interesting. So of the people who are currently in the show, Roy Cropper is the favourite. Rita, Audrey, David Gale, characters that we've already talked about this evening. So there's some fairly understandable names here, and it's always fun if a little bit, feels a bit nasty to look down who's towards the bottom ends of the list, and do they gel with what we're generally thinking. I mean, in the middle, the one name that stands out to me straight away is Nina, who's made 28 out of 73, so she's hit the
ground running.
She's hit the ground running. She's just above Imran as well. Jeff at 32. Then if we go towards the bottom, who people don't like at the moment, I get some surprises, some not so surprised. I mean, some of them are the kids, so there's no surprises that the likes of Ardy, Lily, Max are lingering down the bottom of the list.
Is lower. Is going to go up higher.
Adam Hussein is given
Adam
a real
Hussein
boost.
is great, but also they're investing in the character more now and giving the Alahans more stories, which they hadn't done before.
Yeah, there's a few surprises. I mean, Michael Bailey is the lowest of the Baileys, which is interesting considering
he isn't.
Oh, isn't he? Where's it? Oh, yeah, you're right. Ed is the lowest of the Baileys. You're right. But considering that we actually quite like Michael, I'd have liked to have seen him a little bit higher there. We've got Izzy in last place at 73. Johnny at 56. I'd like to see him a little bit higher. But I mean, there's
can't all be high.
No huge surprises there.
I don't agree with reading this out.
Well, it's too late. I'm sorry. Moira at 60. We mentioned her earlier. I think a lot of people really do like her, but it's clear that she's not one of the most important of the regular characters, sadly, and maybe she never get a chance to. Looking at just the originals characters, so of the original members of the Coronation Street cast, Elsie Tanner is at number 1, Ina, Annie, Minnie, Ken, and then a lot of the other names are characters
lower than Minnie.
I know. A lot of the other names that are on the list are ones that aren't in the top 60, so we haven't mentioned. But I do feel a bit sad that the likes of David Barlow, who's 15 out of 21st, has been forgotten.
I can't believe that.
Some of our favourites, look, from the early days, Harry Hewitt, Christine Hardman.
Is Emma on there?
No, she wasn't one of the originals, was she? Was a bit too late. And but yeah, Esther Hayes there at number 21. I think that feels about right. Out of all the originals, yeah, she didn't really leave a mark in the same way as so many of those others did.
I have to say, I think that the list of like the top 21, it feels very right.
Yeah.
For even what it was like when it was only these 21.
No big surprises.
Like nothing has changed to make Elsie more or less popular than she was, is what I'm trying to say. Then she, like, they all started out pretty much how they ended up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Sorry, Lindley coming in at number 13. Well done.
I know, considering you didn't have a whole lot to do. We've got a top 10 villains here. I can't remember how many villains there were on the list, but Tony Gordon is at 10, then Tanya Pooley, Rob Donovan, Jeff Metcalf. So that's quite interesting. I mean, current character. It's always difficult to know whether people vote villains, give them a low score because they hate them, or they give or whatever. But I mean, the likes of Alan Bradley, Richard Hillman, Pat Phelan, Lewis Archer is the next villain on the list.
So
quite a bit
4.
down, who we haven't mentioned before. So good on him.
Top 3 is Richard Hillman, Alan Bradley, and Pat Phelan.
Yeah.
It feels fair to me. I think.
I wouldn't say that Lewis Archer was
order.
the most villainous of villains, but he's certainly one of the most lovable mean characters with a mean streak. Who else we've got? Top 10 newcomers since the last survey. We've talked about these already, so we can skip past these. I suppose we've got Tim at number 10 then, who I don't think had made it into the top 60. This is fascinating, this next list that we've been sent. Characters with the most votes. So remember, when you voted on this, everybody could vote for whoever they wanted, and they could skip whoever they wanted.
Yeah, so if you I don't actually know who Ina Shupples is.
Yeah.
It's not going to force you to score her.
No,
I think it's really clever.
And that didn't disadvantage the character by not scoring them. It was an advantage that you only scored them if you actually knew who they were.
Yes.
But what it also meant is that some people, should they want to do multiple votes for a particular character. Maybe you could go in there, give that person a score, and then off they go. But at the end of the day,
That would be way too much work.
But it doesn't make any difference, because
the way it was set up, though, no, it would have made a difference. But the way it was set up, it was a bit fiddly unless they were on the first page.
Yeah. So we've got number 10. Sally got 766 votes, just above her.
So
Liz.
I just want to add in.
Donald, go on.
This doesn't necessarily mean that they had the highest votes.
No.
It
most
doesn't
clicks.
Yes.
The most clicks. People clicked on these.
Whether good or bad or average.
Yeah, they didn't skip them, and I think there are some that people. I mean, some they're all current characters. Unsurprisingly, people that all of the current viewers will know who they are: Steve, Gail, Rita, Roy, and Ken. Really interesting to me is that number 2 characters with the most votes out of all 373 is Imran, who got 788 votes, and then number 1 is Toya Battersby, 810 votes. So quite a jump up from the rest. I think we might have some Toya and Imran fans who are going in there jumping, trying to get a few extra points for their favourite new couple.
But I want to say that you might think that because they didn't appear very highly on the list, that means Toya and Imran got lots of bad votes or lots of average votes. But that's not even the case either, because the most divisive characters are the ones that had the
biggest spread.
Yeah, they're not on that list. And
No.
they're also not on the list of characters who scored the most 3s, which is the most meh characters. So really interesting. I think that means that, honestly, I think it's odd, because I wouldn't necessarily say that they're the most recognisable characters on Corrie.
No, I wouldn't either. I think I'd say that was a big surprise.
I haven't quite worked out what it means that they're the top 2. I hope it's positive, and I hope if Coronation Street takes any notice of any of this stuff, they go, well, these 2 have got recognition more than anybody.
You're right, but I think it's possibly more to do with there's a few Imran and Toya fans out there just going to vote for their favourite couple. But at least what we haven't had in this survey, which we did was very, very notable in the last one, was the Sian and Sophie effect, where Sophie ended up at number 4 best Coronation Street character
of all time,
which was ridiculous. There was nobody who in that top 30 today we thought, what the heck are they doing there?
I know, but if this survey had been done during the height of Rana and Kate,
they would have been right.
They would have been number 1 and 2 probably.
Quite possibly. You talked about the most divisive characters list earlier, which we've got open here. So this is the characters.
Oh, this is also non-villains only, because I think that somebody like Pat would probably be pretty divisive.
Yeah. So these are characters that got a widest spread. So lots of 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s. Michael Rodwell is in there, which is quite interesting.
He's number 10.
I think some people really didn't think much of him at all, and other people thought, no, he was lovely, like we do. You got the likes of Michelle Connor here, which is a no surprise at number 7. Lots of people loved her, lots of people absolutely sick of her. But then you got some weird ones like Leonard Swindley, Jerry Booth. I mean, I suppose with those characters, I think they might be people. For some people, you might think, I don't really know much about those, but other people who did thought, no, they were great, actually.
I love Jerry Booth.
Jamie Armstrong's an interesting one, who I'm watching.
He's number 2.
Yeah, Jamie Armstrong, number 2. But I suppose he would fall into the category of characters that, unless you're watching a certain period of Coronation Street, you're not really going to have any idea who he is. But he's actually, I'm quite enjoying watching this young lad in the 1990s repeats, but he's not in any way significant. You don't even know who he is. And then number 1 most divisive character, very befitting, I think, Gemma Winter.
Yep.
Yeah, quite a big jump in score between her and Jamie. Some people love her, some people absolutely loathe her, I think. So people have got an opinion about her, for sure.
I think, were you to have asked this, because this is only the second time they've done this, were you to have done this survey at any point in the last, if we'd had one every 10 years, I think that some of the biggest names on Corrie would have been on that list of divisive characters.
Quite possibly,
I think Bette Lynch would have been on there. I think Elsie Tanner would have been on there. I think there's something about female characters sometimes, especially if they get thrust into the limelight, people can be very, very critical, because we're trained as a society to criticise women for all kinds of different things.
Yeah, you might be right. This ranking is the biggest climbers, so compared to 2010, who has made the biggest jump? Some of them odd that they've made those climbs, like
Ashley's
Ashley
number 10.
Peacock. Why has he jumped up 37 places? Not
Adam,
really
not
sure.
surprising, because
Yeah.
he's had much more to do.
Tracy, she's got more likable, but she's really survived the train crash
So
of
hang on a minute. So
Tracy and Carla feud that went on 5 years or so ago.
Ashley's gone up 37 places from 89 to 52. Just picking out another, what you said, Tracy's gone from 79 to 38.
Yeah, 41
Nick
places.
Tilsley has gone from 174 to 131. Now, I literally cannot believe he's 131.
That feels too low for Nick.
That feels ridiculously low for Nick. Nick's like, to me, I feel top 50 easily.
Quite probably, yeah.
Ryan Connor, another jump, 197
So that's
to
no
144.
surprise, because Ryan Prescott's portrayal of Ryan Connor, I think, is most people's favourite Ryan Connor. I think people quite like him right now. He's at 144, not a great ranking to be fair, but I mean, jump of 53.
Yeah.
Well done him. That just goes to show what a good job Ryan is doing with the character, and maybe he'll be higher next time.
Weird jump to me is John Stape, who hasn't been in it.
No, I can't. When did he die? Even he has. I think he has been in it since 2010.
Oh, okay, then I'll take it back.
Because Hope was born during the tram crash, wasn't she? So he had a little bit of time in there. But yeah, a jump of 57 places, quite spectacular for John Stape. But number one, with a jump of 86 places, we've got Jenny Connor, who went from 144 to 58. Still say that 58 is maybe... I'd like to have seen her a little bit higher, but I understand that
the thing
place
is,
feels
the
a bit
thing we're butting up
quite
against
right.
here is that there are so many people in it now, and there have been so many people in it, that you sort of look at a ranking of 58 and go, oh, that just feels too low. But you're going up against Ina Sharples and Elsie Tanner and Boomin, Hayley Cropper and Hilda Ogden, and also everyone else who's in it now. 58 is bloody respectable.
Yeah. And even
especially
to get 104...
considering Nick Tilsley's 131.
Yeah, absolutely. So 144 she got in 2010, and yeah, when the character wasn't particularly huge before the comeback.
She's had the greatest
change.
She's gone up 86 places.
Yeah. So
great work.
Very good work. Let's hope the climbing will continue.
Yeah, me too.
We can also...
yes,
what have we got here? Oh, you said about the most met characters earlier, so the characters who scored the most threes. We've got the likes of
funny.
Bill Webster at number 10, Gloria Todd, Violet Wilson...
the most okayest characters of all time.
This really does read like a list of okayest characters, doesn't it? Linda Travesky, Renee, Vic
Frank Barlow. He was okay.
He was a...
Florrie Lindley, yeah, she's all right.
Lisa Duckworth. I'm surprised she didn't get a few more twos, to be honest, but okay, she was all right. And then Alice Bishop.
It was the top most mare character of all time, even though he got shot in the face.
He didn't get shot in the face. I don't know where he got shot, but yeah... Sad, but I think 3 feels about right for him, for me. Most loved characters, who had the most fives.
No. Let's do most disliked characters and then end on most loved characters.
Okay, fair dues.
Right, so this was really funny.
Oh, we've still got these ones as well.
I think we have to draw a line somewhere.
Okay,
I think doing the most liked and most loved, most disliked and most loved. So the most number of ones. There are some weird ones in here. There are some ones that I expected to see. There's lots of Mortons here. Yeah,
look at this. This is a bit of a Morton family tree in here, isn't it? Mel, Kaylee and Jodie all got ones, or in the top 10 of most number ones. Charlie Ramsden, Jesse Jackson, not surprising. But then we got a few sort of big names here. Simon Barlow, and he had quite a spectacular drop from where he was in 2010. Sadly, he's now ended up... Have we got a place for Simon Barlow? He was, I don't know. I can't remember. I don't want to find it now, but he's not doing so well, sadly. But not surprising, considering the cutie that he was 10 years ago. The drop's not surprising, because they're not writing for him the same way they were before. He's not been in it much. He was an adorable kid. He was the hope of the Ruby of his time, the cute little... lovable, he was the new sweetie, Chesney. Cute, gorgeous, little kid that you love. And now I feel like he
has got a lot more depth to him, which means he's not making always good choices because that's more interesting. He's got a bit more agency about him, and he went through that whole phase of being abusive to Leanne, and people don't forget that quite quickly. And you know, from a perspective of doing a good job as portraying the character, the actor, I've forgotten his name, Alex Bain, doing a really good job of making Simon, turning him around from being a cute guy to being a bit more dislikable, kind of moody, angsty teen, which is, I think, a fair...
It's that awkward phase that so many characters go through.
I also think,
don't know whether he's going to come out the other end.
He might not, but I have faith that if they want to turn the character around, they can make him likeable again. But also, equally, there's potential for him to be a fun, interesting villain in the sort of vein of Terry Duckworth as, like, the ne'er-do-well son who is constantly disappointing people.
He is a bit of a black sheep of the Barlow family, isn't he?
And that could be that could make him a much more important character than he currently is, because we need these antagonist characters to come in and to cause conflict for people. Tracy was that for years. I mean, he could follow that kind of trajectory of sort of being a cute kid, then becoming a moody teen, then sort of like, you know, chucking it all away and turning into a proper villain, and then coming back and turning it around and having a proper arc.
Yeah, I just think it's a shame. Over a quarter of the voters gave him a 1, and it feels to me like he's not a 1 character. He's too important for that.
No, I know, but this is what I said before. It depends on what you're voting the character. Why are you voting?
Yeah, I know. Importance or liking, or
what are you saying about the character when you give them a 1?
Yeah, up at the top 3 we have Sharif Nazir, who got 259 ones.
That's not really surprising to me because of what they did to the character when he left. Obviously,
he's not a 1. He is not a 1.
No, well, the actor left under a cloud, which has probably affected the way people think about him. They kind of like besmirched the character by making him had an affair before he left, and then
even throughout this Jeff and Yasmin story, Sharif has been brought up and is being mentioned as a not a great husband. And I don't think that when he was in the show,
a little bit, but
I think it is retconning him a bit.
But you know, that's the thing about abusive relationships, isn't it?
Izzy, 263 number ones. It's a bit sad, but then even worse, Gemma, one of your not favourites.
I love this character.
I don't think that you're happy that this person's got the most. 299 ones. That's over a third of the voters gave 1s to Jude Appleton.
They just don't get him.
I can see how the character was planned and a disappointment, but there was so much.
Most disliked characters. Can we just rename this to most misunderstood characters, please?
When I think of Jude Appleton, I think of the laughs and the silliness and the, you know, marine biology ridiculousness that saved that character.
How much
in
they
the end
leaned into the ridiculousness that was inherent to Jude Appleton.
Yeah, he was bland and boring at the beginning. Yes, I'll give him that. But once they thought we got a silly thing to do with him here, that gave the character a nice little coda on the street.
Yeah.
I think. And that is when I think of Jude. That's what I think of. So I wouldn't give him a 1.
I don't know who I gave 1s to now. I can't remember.
It's more of the characters, like, you know, we've got Becky Palmer here at number 6, who also the woman who Des is hanging around with at the moment. Is that a shrug, says Gemma.
I know, but why? But 1.
Yeah, the ones that are absolutely, you know, nothing to the show in the grand scheme of things, and Jude is a bit more than the blip that the Mortons and the Palmers were.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, he was.
Yeah, but you're talking about really skipping rather than giving people ones.
I guess so.
This is active dislike.
Oh, tragic. And yet Mary is so beloved.
Mary's not on the list.
No, I'm sorry, she's not, but related to Jude, you know.
I know, yeah, bad apple.
Even Angie didn't. Even Jude didn't. Angie didn't do too well on this list, sadly.
Well, she didn't get a mare though.
No, she didn't. Right, well, let's end this with the most loved
I think
characters.
It's better to be hated than to be med.
So these are the characters who got the most 5, and obviously there's going to be some parallels with the top 10 characters where they came, but not everything matches up completely.
No, this is very interesting. I'm just trying to see if I can get the the final spreadsheet up so that we can actually compare properly.
Oh, it doesn't work. I don't think it works on the iPad very well. I tried it this morning. It's on here. It's at the bottom there. So at number 10 with 452 likes. So all of these, over half of the voters gave a 5 to. But number 10, we've got Rita. And then at number 9, we've got Bet. 8 is Betty. Then Hayley, Roy, Vera, Deirdre. And then looking at those top 3, where in the actual results of the poll we got Blanche, Jack, Hilda. Now we've got Hilda with 533 5s, the same number of 5s as Deirdre got. And then just pipping her by 1 point, 534. We've got Jack, and then 4 points higher than that we got Blanche. So in some ways,
can't even open it.
I told you it wouldn't work. In some ways, Blanche is still the reigning queen. And she's still at number 1.
I know, it's interesting.
Kind of. But the way the averages work,
yeah,
she didn't quite manage to beat Hilda, but I found that interesting to compare.
Yeah.
Still roughly in the same sort of order. Although, interesting, look, Hayley is lower than Roy, whereas I think in the actual list, Hayley came higher than Roy, didn't she? Yeah. Jack still beat Vera.
Yeah. Hilda's third instead of first.
Yeah. Betty's still ahead of Bet, so there's not a huge amount of changes there. Did Rita manage to make it into the top 10? Let's just skip up a little bit.
Oh, I don't remember.
I can't remember where Rita came.
Oh, maybe she was.
No, Rita was at number 14. We had Elsie at number 10 before. So
interesting. Yeah, I am not surprised really that Elsie didn't get as many likes, because people wouldn't have voted her if they didn't know who she was.
Yeah, that's true. I think we're done. I think that is a very lengthy discussion on what has been an absolute joy to partly work on and promote, and
we didn't work on it. We didn't do anything.
Well, we've talked about our podcast is our work, isn't it? And,
coronationstreet.fandom.com. Thank you so much for all of the hard work.
Why do you always read out their web address?
Because then because if you write in Corriepedia, you don't necessarily get. There's quite a few different Corrie wikis, don't you?
I know there is. And
I want people to know, like, when you say Coronation Street blog as well, you never give the address and people don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing a good job.
You are. You're doing them a service.
Corriepedia,
right.
coronationsstreet.fandom.com.
Yes. This has been so much fun to do. We have dedicated
so hard on
many hours on promoting this and talking about it and everything, and it's been so fun. I do love a list. I love a ranking. And
I love the idea that we're all, even though we've all done this and taken this survey in our own time, we're still having a discussion kind of at the end of it here, between everybody about who's the best and who do you hate and who's done better this year. I just wish that we could go back in time and ask people who watched it in the first 10 years, like, what's your ranking? That would have been so brilliant.
Honestly, who do you think is going to still be here in 60 years' time?
But this is part of the Coronation Street's legacy, and this ranking now is part of Corrie's history, and a bit of a snapshot here of like hardcore fans and what they think of it, and it's really heartening to see that there are still some big classic names there, even though the percentages of when people started watching it, it's pretty obvious that not everybody was around to see some of these Corrie greats in action, but their legacy remains.
Oh, what a lovely way to end it. I think we better call it a day there. It is time for me to go to bed. It is a school night.
I know, it's blimmin' 11:30.
Yeah. And but
we thought this would be an hour and a half.
Thank you everybody for voting.
It's been twice as long.
Thank you for listening. Thank you Corriepedia for putting this together. It's been lots of fun. And
thank you for listening to this incredibly long podcast.
Well, and thank you for joining me for it as well, Gemma.
Oh, thank you. I didn't really have a choice.
What do you mean?
Well, I was sitting here and I suddenly got dragged into doing a podcast.
You enjoyed it.
This is where I sit every day.
You always love it. Right, we are going to go.
Yeah.
Goodbye, everybody, and don't forget to check out our other podcast, which is probably going to be quite long too. Hope you got nothing on this weekend. Everybody.
You make it sound like we do another podcast, like a true crime one or something.
Goodbye, everybody.